There.
Okay, 5:59.
Yeah.
Okay, 6 p.m., 6 o'clock. Well, it's now 6 o'clock and I am calling to order this regular meeting of the Sunnyvale School District Board of Education. This meeting is available in English and Spanish. Will the translator please give instructions on the translation services available?
Yes. Hello, good evening, everyone. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in the Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select the language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the world icon located on your feature panel, and interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration. Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this meeting is, please know that a recording is being made at the direction of the board and that the recording may capture sounds of those attending the meeting. So who is not about to speak, please turn off your mic. I see that all the members of the boards are present. 2 of them are online today. And with that, we can begin the meeting as we have full forum. Okay, we're gonna start please with item 1B, which is the flag salute. Please join me on the Pledge of Alliance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good. So now we're gonna give a brief land acknowledgement. Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Moquiwa Ohlone tribe, who have peacefully honored and cared for this land for thousands of years. We recognize that every member of the Sunnyvale community continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land. We acknowledge our responsibility to learn from the wisdom of the Ohlone people and to consider how we might work to repair injustices and to move forward together in honorable ways. Okay, now we are moving to item 2, the approval of the agenda. It is recommended by the staff that the board approve the agenda. If there is any member of the public who would like to speak on this particular item, which is the approval of the agenda only, please use the raise hand feature or bring a card talking about this particular item. Is there anyone? Okay. Not seeing any, the board, is there a motion to approve the agenda as it is?
I motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay. Perfect. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Chairs votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. So we approve the agenda. And our first item today, 3A, would be a study session on, That's right, I print this on, sorry, but it's a study session and the contact person today will be Tasha B, our Chief Teaching and Learning Officer. Go ahead.
Good evening. Okay, good evening, board. How are you this evening? Wonderful. We're coming to you tonight, myself, Dr. Tasha Dean and Jonathan Watts, Coordinator of Curriculum and Instruction and Assessment. And we're coming tonight to have a conversation around high school data in our students and how we're transitioning to the high school. The focus of this is to kind of look at our seniors who graduated in the years 2021-22, because that was kind of a full cohort that we could have more meaningful data around. We will also bring to you some trends, some actions, some things that we've identified as a part of our data analysis. And then from there, we will look at some additional trends as a part of the session, and it will be an opportunity for us to consider potential questions, things we want to look at in the future. And then you'll have an opportunity to kind of engage interactively with the data board that Jonathan and the team has created in order to support a deeper understanding of the data and kind of the process that we're going through in order to more accurately understand some of the trends and also what actions we may need. So with that, I'm going to bring Jonathan forth, who's going to give us an overview, and I'll come back to you with some additional details in just a moment. Jonathan.
Awesome. And then Bridget, how's it looking now? You can see? Excellent. Okay. I was also looking in the chat and saw that it was off a little. Okay, so I'm going to start working through here, and then eventually it becomes a little bit more interactive for this one. And then so I'll share my screen when we get to that point. So I'm going to start highlighting some of the trends that we saw, and then we'll dive in. I'll show you how you can actually use this tool on your own to see some of these trends, and then also look at other additional data points that you might be interested in. At this point, you're clicking, Jesus, I'm seeing your email. I don't know. Okay, so we're seeing when we looked at this data from the high school, so looking at the similar data points that we have, some that we don't have, like UC, CSU requirements, we see a similar trend with the same group of students that are continuing to be underserved. So I really focused on our priority students that we are looking at as a district. And saw kind of how does this play out once they go through the system, also through high school. So we're seeing the same thing with Hispanic students, English learners, and our families that are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but in general, we're seeing the same kind of trend when you're looking at comparing whether it's UC, CSU requirements that are met, or whether it's looking at the GPA range. We're seeing similar things. So more strength with our RFEP students, but still when you look within who's been reclassified as English proficient, not all students that have been reclassified are performing similarly. So again, as we start to look at both our Spanish speaking reclassified students and reclassified students who are Hispanic, we'll see that they often don't perform as well as some of the other reclassified English proficient groups. And I'm going to show in just a second how we can explore some of this data. Let's see if I can click to the next.
Jonathan, I have a quick question for clarification. There is 2 bullet points here: Hispanic RFEP students meeting UC/CSU, and then the last bullet point is Spanish speaking students. Is there overlap there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I never quite figure out where I need to point. Okay, can we, next slide. Oh, yeah, here we go. And then I can share mine. Perfect. Okay, so let me share my screen. We'll be back in just a second here. Okay. So continuing on, we're seeing similar here with, and this is unfortunately somewhat expected because we see this also in our data. So with our families that are coming from a socioeconomically disadvantaged background, 57% of this cohort were not meeting the CSU or UC requirements. And then looking down also, we could see that being chronically absent affected, or having coming from a socioeconomically disadvantaged background also had an impact with attendance. So they showed whether you were chronically absent 1 year out of your 4 years in high school, 2 years, 3, or 4. Also taking consideration that the pandemic was in there, and I'm not sure how they coded their absences, so there could obviously be some discrepancies, but either way, when you compare it with other groups, so if you look at English only versus ELs, you're going to tend to see that ELs have more years of chronically absent. So we're seeing a lot of just the same trends. So after looking at the data that we had some additional data points that we were kind of interested in, and I think a lot of this matched some of the questions that you had too, some of the things that you were interested in finding. So actually I was just talking with Danae, who I communicate with at Fremont today, because she knew that we were doing the board presentation. So I was chatting with her and just saying, yeah, I'm doing the board presentation today, and we're setting up a time where she's going to come back to Sunnyvale. So after I capture kind of the conversations we have, the different thoughts, what our next steps are and what data points we're looking at, I'm going to meet with her. And then we're going to work through that and see kind of what we can share together. So some of the things we were looking at is this goals course, because in the data set I got, we didn't have much included on the goals course and which students go in there. And then also meeting with both site principals, CMS and SMS, both had an interest also in seeing which students, who's taking Algebra 2 and who's passing Algebra 2. And so along with that, we are interested in kind of seeing, depending on the math course that they might take with us in middle school, how might that affect some of their trajectory when they go into high school as well.
Jonathan, I have a question. Algebra 2 is the one they take when they are entering freshmen?
I don't think they do it at entering freshmen. I'm not entirely
It's the one
sure.
after geometry.
After geometry.
So it
Right.
depends, like if you took geometry as an elective in 8th grade, then you would go in at the Algebra 2/Algebra 2 trig.
Okay.
And Michelle, would you happen to know the significance? Because I know that when I talked with both middle school, and I know that Columbia middle school administrators have a ton of high school background, so they were very excited to talk about all this high school data. But I know there was a point of significance around Algebra 2, and I can't remember exactly what it is.
So how many, like maybe Mr. Bonos, what is the one that they take when they have accelerated math?
So so there's two questions. So the one that we're really wondering about is algebra, right? This is passing algebra. To me, algebra is algebra 1. So algebra 1 is the gatekeeper, right? Because you have to pass algebra 1 to be eligible even for high school graduation, right? So that's why that's the one that we really looking at. Advanced math is algebra 2, so forth and so on. For our students that take geometry, they would then elect them to take in algebra 2.
Yeah.
The majority of our students are going into algebra.
Yeah, thank you.
So the order is algebra, geometry, Algebra 2, or Algebra 2 trig.
Correct.
And then it breaks off in other things as you go
I have
higher.
trigonometry and other stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Even some of the data points took some talking with these guys to figure out what it is. They have much different data points in college or in high school than we do in elementary and middle. Those are some of the things that we were looking at in the future. In addition, looking at what actions can we take based on this data? What can we do here? Because that's really what we can talk about, what we have control over. So some of the things we were looking at is continuing, obviously focusing on our English learners and English language development, because we see that that's a need even as they're continuing into high school. So the better we're able to serve them, the more prepared they'll be when they get into high school. And we're also seeing the same, like a lot of this is really affirming that you know, the students that we're looking at, that we're giving priority to for summer registration and after school those types of things. We're hitting it with the right demographics. Like this is who we need to be serving and who we historically have not served as well as we could. And then, Tasha, did you want to jump in for the next piece here?
So in looking at the data, we tried to make meaning of just kind of our analysis at that point, but then in addition to that, looking at the some of the questions that the board had presented as a part of the data that we presented. So there were some data questions that we wanted to process with you, but in addition to that, and going through the data, there were definitely some trends in what we were seeing. There's also some trends in the questions that you were asking. And so they kind of fell essentially into three main buckets. One bucket had to do with
Engagement.
Are you sharing that one? Okay. But anyway, around engagement. And so what we were looking at, there were quite a few different questions that pinpointed to that point with regards to engagement around that. So we'll come back and talk about that. The other area were questions that kind of floated around the area of comparison, like this to this, if this happens, this happened, if they took algebra and this happened, those types of questions. So that was the next series of questions. And then the last area of focus has to do with future data points. And so we're going to come back after we kind of go through a data analysis with you to talk about some trends and some expectations and things that we will do as we move forward. And so what we're going to do is kind of focus on three elements. And so at this time, in the top of your inboxes, in your email inboxes, you should have a link that you're going to be able to click on that will mirror what you see on the screen.
Yes.
I don't think it's been sent yet.
She's gonna get you right now with that.
Can I ask Mr. Paul a question? So Columbia students generally go into Algebra 1 in high school?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Bridget?
Well, I think there's a clarification there because I think they have to test into it. I think that if they're not proficient, they won't be able to register, right? Is there some sort of testing for algebra? Or do they just register and then not?
So it's saying it's open enrollment.
Yeah,
It's open enrollment, okay.
If they take accelerated math, but don't take geometry as an elective, which one is the next?
Algebra 2.
Algebra 2, okay, so they are already done with Algebra 1 in middle school. Thank you.
Good, okay. Did you all see that link that was sent? Okay, great.
Looker Studio.
Let me get to the right window.
Wait, I have a question. Doesn't it go algebra 1 and then geometry and then algebra 2? Isn't that the progression?
It doesn't have to, but traditionally it does, but it doesn't have to because it's not sequential like that. Because the geometry kind of stands alone, right? So,
For example, some schools do geometry first and then they do algebra, but generally it's algebra 1 first and then.
Thank you.
Okay, let me get Zoom back here. Share screen. Switch to the right tab. Where did my others go? Try this again. Keep losing my tab. I apologize. I've done this before. Nice. There we go. Okay. Try this one more time. Okay. Are you all on this part?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so what I would like to do is I'm going to walk you through just how I found so that you kind of understand how to use the tool, how I came up with a couple of these data points. So let's start with the Hispanic students meeting the CSU UC requirements. So with this dashboard, everything's interactive. I think I might have shown this with you one other time. So what we want to start with is this data is showing for all of the students. So the students that came from Columbia, students who came from SMS that were in that graduating class. So if you go ahead and click on down where that wheel of ethnicity is, and then click on the one that is Hispanic, the darker blue that says 35%, and then give it a second. So what it just did was it filtered the rest of the data, and so now we're zooming in just on Hispanic students. And so looking at that, anything else that you're reading around is going to be telling you, okay, of the Hispanic students, there's the rest of the story. So if you look over at the CSU UC requirements met, there's a 29% that met CSU requirements. That's of the Hispanic students there. So similarly, if you look down in the disability, so of our 35% of those Hispanic students, 79% didn't have a registered disability. So that's kind of that's how you would read that. Under the GPA, I have the bubbles getting bigger as the cohort size gets larger, but the key is up there. So of our Hispanic students in that graduating class, the majority were in the 0 to 1.9 GPA range, followed by the actual other extreme of 3 to 4.0. Which is kind of interesting. And if you hover over that, you can see the count, the actual number. So 79 students are in the 0 to 1.9, and then 61 students are in the 3 to 4.0.
Well, I'm really glad, Jonathan, I'm really glad you clarified that, because the way that it's laid out, it looks like, you know, if I didn't see the coding at the top, like it looks like the majority of students are 3.0 to 4.0 because of where the number is on the graph, right? Like
because it's kicking over to the right. Yeah. So I spend a lot of time trying this out, you know, and I have to kind of show different people like, how would you read this? What does this look like? So that's why I also went with the color coding to try and make like stoplight colors. So it's one more kind of like, oh, but it's red. That's interesting. So kind of draw your eyes in there.
Thank you.
Jonathan, and this is only Hispanic students from our district, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so when you're filtered for Hispanic students, at the top right, I also put you can see Columbia and Sunnyvale. So you'll see 122 next to Columbia, and then the 83 at Sunnyvale. So that means that out of that group, that's where those are the feeder schools. So 122 of them came from Columbia, and then 83 came from Sunnyvale Middle. And then at any point, let's say that now we want to look at, either we want to tag on another filter. So let's say we're looking right now at Hispanic students, but let's drill in a little bit further and go to our Hispanic reclassified as English fluent proficient. So we're going to click on where it says, so keep that one filtered, that's fine. And then on the ELA status, we're going to click on that blue that says RFEP. And you'll know that you're filtered for both of those because you see that the color wheels have kind of grayed out everything except for the bar that you've chosen. So now we're looking at Hispanic students who were reclassified as English proficient. And so everything is filtered for them. So let's say that you kind of wanted to look at, I'm really curious about RFEP students going through different ethnicities. So at this point, you can see what we've got filtered for Hispanic RFEP students. If you were to click on, just on the ethnicity wheel, if you click on Asian, it keeps the RFEP status. So now you're showing, okay, so Asian RFEP students, and now the whole thing is filtering for them so that you can kind of see the difference. So if you go back and forth, you're able to see that. So I know that there was a couple questions I want to make sure that I do answer because I think there was a couple questions that actually I wanted to just look at because I wanted you to explore since you asked it, but now you have the tools so you can actually answer it yourself by looking at it. I think one that you are interested in, this one, graduation data.
Yeah, are there differences from graduation data for Hispanic or low-income students?
Okay, so let's do that together. So what I'm going to do is at the top, you should have a big reset button. I'm going to click reset. So it resets all my filters. So now we're back to stage one. And so you wanted to see graduation, yeah, so Hispanic, low income. So if at the very top where it says socioeconomically disadvantaged, if you click that drop down, and then where it says yes, the Y, click on only. So what that does is it just selects yes. And then when you click out on any of the white spot on the dashboard, now it's filtered, and you can tell it's filtered because if I click this again, you can see that just that is checked. So now we're looking at just socioeconomically disadvantaged students. And if you wanted to switch it the other way around, you could go back up to that filter and change that. Yeah, Bridget.
Sorry, so can you show us one more time if there's a way to disaggregate where, if they come from SMS or CMS?
Yeah, so up here in this right-hand corner where it says school and this record count. So right now I have it filtered for socioeconomically disadvantaged. And so I know that of that group, and I have the number, I put the number there too. So there's 130 students that are in that group, socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Okay.
The 130 is made up of 60 students that came from Sunnyvale Middle and 70 that were that came from Columbia.
Okay, so that's not in the other graphs, that's just the overall info.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
super. Thank you.
So as you're looking through, what types of either questions are coming up, what trends are you noticing, or additional wonderings? Might just be enjoying the tool also. So one of the things that I really attached to when I was looking at your questions was some of the engagement questions that you had, which I thought was really interesting. Also because recently I've been working with someone over at Fremont that provides us with elementary wrestling at some of our Title I schools, and we're just meeting again to get that going for next year. And a lot of the questions that you had around engagement were kind of like, you were asking, you know, what is the difference between maybe, if we're looking at English learners that were involved in a lot of sports, found clubs, after school events, something that they really, you know, were passionate about, they got tied to, are we seeing any difference between, you know, English learners, let's say, that are involved in those and English learners that didn't find any clubs, any sports or anything else? Like, are we seeing that academic success? Because like, when I've been talking with Daniel McCoon, he's one of our parents also that works over there with the Beats the Streets Wrestling that puts this together. He talks about what he personally sees and the impact of students that get involved and find sports or clubs or something else that really, if nothing else, that is the thing that's really engaging them in school. And the power of how that can connect students with school, and then the success that he sees when they have something like that. So I thought a lot of the questions that you had were good around, yeah, is there any data on that? I'm not sure. But that's something also that I think we have locally control over, you know, coming up with different sports and after school events. So I thought that that was actually a good kind of starting place possibly as a discussion, and just kind of what were you thinking along those lines? And maybe from your own experiences, what have you seen?
Okay, so do we start the discussion? Do we need to have a public comment before we start?
You could, it's kind of like, you can do it.
Public comment whenever, we should have public comment at some point during this item.
I'm gonna stop sharing just so I can take notes as you're,
Okay.
is that okay? Okay.
Sure. Well, so we're ready for the comments. We're gonna start before we start begin with public comments. So now is the time for public comments on this particular item, which is the study session 3A. Please use the raise hand feature online if you are online. If you are present and want to talk about this particular item, the cards are there at the table. So you can give them to Jesus. Okay, time limits. Are there any comments on this item?
Okay, so no public comments.
Okay, as we don't have any public comments, then we can start with our conversation because we don't need to go to approve anything here. So Nancy and Bridget, Nancy, can you go first?
Okay, so my wonderings have to do with additional barriers that are not seen when you look at data represented by schools such as Sunnyvale Middle and SMS. And the biggest barrier I see is that of geography. The distance from a student's residence to the high school in and of itself. And what impact does that have on attendance engagement and overall academic success. Because we can't change where people live, but we can increase awareness of the needs that may be different in certain among certain areas of our community than other, because of the proximal distance they are to the actual high school to which they attend. And why this has relevance, in addition to understanding, is that we are beginning to engage in that wonderful opportunity of the joint project at the library on our Lakewood campus. And I think that this has important relevance about capacity to serve students and a place from which we can engage in additional supportive activities. And I want to be proactive in thinking about planning from that particular perspective and awareness, and how we need to engage our families even before they hit high school if we're seeing that there's a definite impact on connectiveness based on the geographical proximity that they have to the high school to which they are attending.
Thank you for that, Nancy. Actually, Jonathan and I actually spoke to this a little bit because there were some additional questions that you raised as a board, which had to do with like zip code versus GPA and some other elements. But one of the things we think is really important, in addition to that, about that element, is we think this is gonna kind of require almost like an exit interview type of situation, because it's not necessarily a direct correlation. So it would be more so finding out from which students who, based upon their family or the student, whether they feel like transportation was an issue for them. And I just say that because there will be variation even within any zip code where that could be an issue. So for example, there might be a theme that a particular zip code has challenges because of distance from the school. But the reality is someone can be very close, but if parents are not able to guide, support, or get them to school, they're actually dealing with some of the exact same variables and difficulties that a student who might be further away. Student further away may not have any problems getting to school because they may have parents or someone else who's actually able to bring them to school each day. So we think it's going to require a conversation and be very selective around that. And we do have it. We do have this particular item down, but I think the way that we want to approach it is from a conversation standpoint and not a black and white zip code type of situation, because we could see where that could really potentially bring with it some bias and assumptions that may or may not be true.
Brilliant. Brilliant, you have questions?
Yeah, you know, I keep raising and lowering my hand because I'm like, I want to listen, but I need to say something, so I'm really conflicted. I just, you know, I think this conversation, I'm really happy we're starting this conversation with the high school. I don't feel like, I feel like this is the beginning of a conversation with them. I think, you know, I've heard as a trustee and talking to our high school district, trustees and people who have kids who go there and people who are involved in teaching there and with clubs there and parent volunteers there, that there is a perception that, you know, that all the expulsions are coming from Sunnyvale and that all of the unprepared kids, like bringing down the scores, are from Sunnyvale. And I just feel, you know, so I felt like, well, show us that it's our kids, and let's see how our kids are doing there, right? And then we've been having the equity conversations around how we're doing serving the Spanish speaking community here in Sunnyvale. And I really feel like, you know, by the time they get to middle school, the kids who are very far behind, many of them are from Spanish speaking families. And, it's up to us to really understand the why about that. But, we need to serve them better. It's not a matter of their scores are low. It's that our service to them is somehow inadequate and inappropriate, even though we're doing a lot of things, and there's a lot of innovation happening in our district and a lot of this year that I'm really proud of. But everything that we do right now, like we're thinking in terms of how are they, like the end for us is 8th grade, but that's really the beginning of high school, and high school is the key of their positioning for post-secondary education. So I feel like even though we're not a unified district, we live in the same community as, we share that our kids all go to that high school district. And I feel like if we can dive into some of this information, like, like for example, for us in our school district, we no longer have a after school bus. We had it for a brief period of time. And we no longer have we have an immediately after school bus, but we don't have an after school bus that would allow our middle schoolers at SMS to participate in after school programs, right? Or tutoring or anything like that. And so I would like to know if the kids who we are we creating disengagement in our district before they even go there? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to understand if we, through our policies and procedures, are creating a problem that is just perpetuated and expanded in high school because they don't even have any bus, So I'm trying to understand.
That's a good question.
So that's kind of just where I'm feeling. I might have more to add later, but that's what I'm kind of wrestling with right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Jonathan and I looked at the data and just kind of in our conversations as a team in a department, we're also evaluating when we say engagement, what we mean. Like, what does that really mean? And trying to define that more so from the perspective of the student and not even their parents, because sometimes what parents will describe as being engaged is not what students call as being engaged. So one of the things that became very clear in your questions and then just in our conversations is it is going to require some conversations and not just a survey or not just parents reporting or whoever it might be. So that was one of the big factors that came up. The other piece that we thought about a little bit is where we talked about, how are we welcoming kids into activities? So like start in high school in some ways before we start, like they do some things at our middle schools now with the transitions and other things they try to do to kind of bridge that step to the high school. So some of the things we've been talking about is how do we maybe get our students connected to some of the things that they're doing at the high school in a different kind of way, either by bringing students over or other kinds of ways. So those are conversations that we're having. But I think our first point here is to talk to the students. Like, as we look at our work over the last several years, I think their voices have been the ones that we have not been as intentional about getting. And so that's a part of our work this year is how do we get the voices of our students and more of them, because I think that will better inform our practice, even so than some of the input we get from their families.
Can I just ask what to say? One little follow-up thing. I'm so sorry. One little tiny follow-up thing is, even though I really want us to get the student voice in there, I also do believe that the data tells a story that's sometimes surprising. So like, for example, and some of it might start as early as elementary school with access to, who has access to intramural sports, right? With their family, right? Because we don't really start after school sports and mostly until middle school. And so I think like our middle school teams are very much comprised of students who have had that kind of access. And then those are the kids who go on. So I think we have we have some things that we could do just if we just knew the numbers. And I think I saw several times about zip codes. So even though, yes, I want to do the students, I also think that it's a very like numbers check that we could just do and go, wow, all those attendance people are like way far north, or maybe that's not true. Maybe they're much closer and we don't really know. We're just assuming that. So anyway, sorry, I'll shut up.
Oh, no, good follow-up. And just to clarify, we're not saying don't look at the zip code. We're just saying that's secondary or even further down information. The higher level is why are they not accessing and not making the assumption, really getting their voice to understand why they're not. Maybe they don't like it, maybe exposure, maybe cost. I mean, there's so many variables out there, and we were just having a conversation just yesterday on, I know like when I grew up, I could play anything, do anything from anywhere within my neighborhood. It was typically free or close to it. Parent with getting kids engaged in things, everything's at a cost, a registration fee, workout material, clothes, shoes, I mean, just all kinds of things that are attached, whereas before those things were not. So trying to assess what might be barriers and being clear that they are, and then how do we combat if we do through this process realize that there are barriers that either we're contributing to or we may not be contributing to, but then still, how do we intervene to minimize the barriers that may exist?
So I do want to say that Sunnyvale for Equity in Education and my friend Peggy, who's in the audience, did do an informal survey by zip code about transportation to Fremont. And even though that was an informal survey, we saw very strongly that kids from the farther north zip codes were far more likely to take the bus or be driven than have other means of transportation to school. I want to say on a personal note that I went to Archbishop Mitty for 3 years driving from Morgan Hill, and it took me 25 minutes to get to school and home every day through traffic. And I told Michelle this, that my final year I transferred to the local high school that was literally across the street, and it was so much better. All of a sudden I could do sports, do track, walk to my physics class at 7 in the morning and then run back home because I forgot my coffee mug and go back, and it was magic. I also have a question, or not really a question. A little while ago in the Fremont Phoenix, in their high school newspaper, there was, I don't want to say an expose, but like a critical piece about the electives and clubs for Spanish-speaking students available at Fremont. I think the complaint was that there was only one elective available for Spanish-speaking students, and I am curious about how we address that as a district, what we do for Spanish-speaking students, in particular newcomers or Spanish-only students in the middle schools. I recognize that I think in high schools, electives are more of a thing than they are in middle school, but also just having clubs available after school for Spanish students, I feel like that would be very helpful in engagement in these students while they're still with us. There was also, going back to the SEE survey, it's so much harder to participate in school when you live far away from school, especially when you have to take a bus, and especially for a lot of the high school things that happen at night, like robotics, I think goes until 9 o'clock. And even now when we're approaching summer, that becomes a nighttime activity then, and taking the bus back home like that is difficult.
Thank you.
Michelle?
I can't remember, Jonathan, what your original question was, but it was I know you're talking about the engagement with extracurricular, and I just wanted to say, I think that was just interesting, right? That would be, I don't know if we had that, but that would be interesting data to see, right? So one, just if the high school kids are engaged, are they academically more successful? Because then if they are, then for sure it's then it's really important for us to figure out how do we help more of our students find a thing that they're into, right? And how do we support them and whatever. So I just thought that was really interesting. And then I don't know if you kind of mentioned, but just when you were showing us the data stuff, when we could do the breakdown between I clicked on Columbia. I can't remember, we got into one of the subsets. I think it's that socioeconomic, whatever subset, right? Then I clicked on Columbia,
and looked at a couple of the indicators and I looked at Sunnyvale, right? And I just was like, you're probably already looking at that, but I just thought, oh, that will be a helpful piece too, right? So like a positive of Columbia was that like they had more, I think it's the seal by literacy, right? I think they had almost double the number of students have seal, or percentage, not number, I guess.
Yeah.
By literacy than Sunnyvale, right? So that was interesting, like, oh, why? And then on the flip side, a negative for Columbia was that they had less of that group of students meeting the UC requirements than Sunnyvale, right? So anyways, you're probably looking at that, but I was like, oh, that will be helpful information to kind of look at, like, oh, if like, maybe it's just random, or maybe there's something that's going on that is helping one of those schools be more successful and another school can tap into it. So that just was interesting. I'm like, ooh, this is like new information I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah, so what I did really, as you were asking those questions, and I'm reading through the questions, like a lot of the ones that were around engagement, I started to think, ooh, it'd be really neat to have that as an overlay with some of this. So I'd like to see like same, while you're controlling for the same demographics, so you're looking at English learners, but you're looking at those that may have had access to more sports or engagement, how does it affect, the dashboard and the data that we have here? So what is kind of this overlap between getting students really enjoying something, whatever it is in school, that's that one thing that might be driving them to go there. Because I wasn't really big into sports in high school, but I know some that was really what got them going and continuing to go and motivated them to go there. That was a big driving factor. And it also, for some students that are really engaged in sports, that can also be another outlet, another vehicle to go to college, different options for scholarships. So while it wasn't a world that I lived, the more that I talk with people that did live that world, I see such a huge benefit. And that's something that I don't think is already, it's not thought of a ton. Because we do focus so much on the academic data and how can we improve that. But if we do find that some of these extraneous things that we may not be really running that much data on actually have a strong kind of impact, that's something tangible that we could take action on.
Yeah, and then the other piece.
Before we go on, I'm sorry, Michelle, and just to build on that, one of the comparisons in particular that Jonathan talked about, and we have, is to look at the other alternative programs. So not just like sports, but any other activities. And then also like alternative programs like middle college and some of the other programs to see which students are going into those, and is there a correlation too between if they entered in one of these unique programs, how do they make out on the other side after participating in such a program? So not just the sports, but some of the other alternative programs as well.
Well, not just sports, but extracurriculaire, right? Like you might get connected in robotics, you might get connected in drama.
Right.
Might be like newspaper or something that really gets you there,
Yeah, band, band is like 4 times a week, the marching band, the very late.
Right, and so we are also trying to think about using the high school's data, because how they do data is a little bit different. And so which data points would be more easily able for us to access because of what the programs are too. So we're looking at that as well.
Yeah, I appreciate this discussion a lot. And I think while we're talking about participation in organized activities, whether it's after school or clubs, whatever, is really important. Tasha alluded to this. Also important, more important, I'm not sure, is just an overall sense that this school is for me, that I belong at this school. And that's something that we should pay attention to, and I think our principals do quite a bit in the middle school level. But I think that's the real key. Having a soccer team that is open to all kids is part of it. That's like an objective thing, but it's really talking to the kids and saying, like, does this school feel like a place where I belong, where I fit in? And there's lots of ways of accomplishing that through staff members, through a culture that you create on campus, and the activities are an important part of that. So I think going back to what Tasha said about like asking the question, and then like Bridget was saying, also checking hard data points too. There's kind of the softer data and the harder data, I guess, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I've got 2 more quick things. So then the other one was just when you were talking about talking with them, and I don't know what they talked with Suzanne of what your idea was, but the idea of maybe like talking, if there's a way for us to talk to some of the juniors and seniors who were our students at the 2 schools I mean, is that what you're thinking about, like talking, not
Yes.
like our students now, but talking to the ones who are a little bit older, who've been there a few years,
Yes.
and maybe ones who are succeeding and then ones who are not too, and just like,
Right.
hey, what did we do that helped? What could we have done differently? Like,
Exactly,
Yeah, that's what we
and that's also part of what the high school wants to do, so we think that would be an area that they would be probably pretty interested in doing, because they're supposed to do exit data on students. We would just be doing this a little extra, and a little bit early, so that when they get there, it's a positive outcome. So yeah, that is exactly what we're trying to do.
and then my last piece is not just of this discussion, but just one of my questions I asked, and I don't know if it's actually necessarily a super important data piece, but my question was something about kind of this group, like comparing this group of students, like this demographic from our like schools to the high school to the other school districts, like take that same demographic. So I don't know how important that data is necessarily for helping us. So I asked it, I don't know if that's important, but I do wonder, like when Bridget kind of said her thing about perceptions, right? Like maybe just for perception perspectives, that would be an interesting, right? Like, do we have a higher percentage of our, take any of these demographics that we're looking at, right? Do we have a higher percentage of our students in that demographic getting expelled into suspensions than theirs, right? Because purely by numbers, we have more Hispanic students, we have more low socioeconomic. So if it's just a numbers thing, well, yeah, of course we're gonna have more, right? But looking at the percentages, right, that would be an interesting, like, 50% of their kids are and only 10% of theirs and 10% are ours, right? Like, anyway, I don't know if that's helpful, but I just thought this thinking, and that's all I'm saying.
Well, 2 points, because I think you all raised some questions that were similar to that, and so we kind of put some additional parameters around it for our brain. So one of those were looking at any of our students who attend any of the high schools and doing a comparison by schools of our students. Like, is there a different experience if I went to Fremont versus if I went to Homestead of our cohort of kids? So that was one area. The other is looking at similar cohort of students from different groups, right? So that we can see, is it just Hispanic students, or is it students who make up a particular profile or whatever, as we look across programs at the high school, or is it targeted in particular areas? But it definitely needs to be as much similarity in who we're looking at in order for it to be meaningful. We definitely have thought about that.
Okay, so some of my questions are, well, with engagement, we do have surveys that we do to our kids every year that the teachers engage them during the classroom and tell them, follow the survey and fill it up. So is that has been a good source of all these questions that we have about engagement with the children?
Yes and no. So yes, in letting us know how many feel like they are engaged, but what it doesn't do, because it requires a little bit more of a conversation, is you are engaged. Why more particularly are you engaged? And what kinds of things are you doing? What keeps you engaged? So that part of the conversation is more difficult through survey, and that's the part of the conversation we want to try to get to. But it does at least give us a sense of which kids feel like, yes, I belong here, I feel safe here. I like coming to school, those types of things. So we do get that, but then building and being able to go a little deeper and a little wider to when they say yes, what they mean, and if they say no, why are they saying no, and what is their experiences?
Also, I would be interested to know about the kids who are and the kids who are not performing, the relationship with the engagements of their families and how much support they get from their families from any kind of reason. Either the families work or don't, or if they are the parents pushing behind their success, all those things. And their after school activity, if they did after school activities at our schools before they went to high school, why they did or what they did. And as you say, then one of many things that we've been talking a lot about extended day or after school and the opportunity to actually get there and get back home with transportation. I heard a few times the thing that our kids don't have the same opportunities to go to competitive sports in high school, and they already go behind because they didn't have enough opportunity while they were our charges. And that might be something that maybe we can do about it. And again, not every kid is on sports, but then we have, you know, the difference in socioeconomic variety of kids that we have, as you say. We have kids who get a lot of after school, a lot of extra activities, academic activities, extra classes, extended day, and their own private, very expensive private tutoring. And obviously those kids will do very well. But then how can we give, you know, a leg to our kids? By the time they get there, they are, you know, as prepared as the other kids. That will be great, even with, you know, extra time to catch up on all that. And this part of engagement is, again, it's not just about sports, but it's, you know, all the other, like chess club, all this stuff that, you know, come up for a couple of weeks sometimes in one school and then in another, but then you have other kids who are doing that every day during all their, you know, the parents take them from one place to another, or a nanny takes them to 10 different things during the week, and, you know, they are really engaged, and they create discipline, which it might not be, again, from sport, it might be from something else, science camps, whatever. And you know, then if we know, if we can fill those gaps, that will be a great help, you know, if these things actually help, if these things make the difference for them when they get home to high school, how many of these kids, they or somehow their families are actually able to get engaged into these activities. I heard also another, well, this is also anecdotal, so I don't know about, maybe it's not a trend or something that the data will show, but also this difference between the English learners and the AP kids. Apparently there are two different things. And then I asked, like, why don't we have English learners, why AP? Or, you know, Hispanic kids or Latino kids who also get to be the AP kids, the ones that get a lot of AP classes. And what is failing in the middle that they don't get there, we don't help them get there. How many of our kids get to have APs and succeed in that? Any kind, it might not be in mathematics, but might be in anything. And you know, also this, we've been having some emails about this, and we are also talking about the change in the state is doing in the curriculum that everybody has to adopt. In the math curriculum, and then we have the questions about how our kids who did in accelerated math or the regular math are prepared, like kids that we might have 4 for us are prepared when they, or 3 for us, how well prepared they are when they get to high school. Can they keep up? Can they keep those 3s or 4s that they have here when they get there? And in comparison with other kids, like pretty much, how well are we doing when we say that this is a 4.0 kid? Is it a 4.0 kid? When they get there, they can keep it up, and are they really good? And well, again, about the numbers, with the difference in the numbers and the percentage of how our Hispanic population doing in relationship with other kids. I will like to know how many of our Hispanic kids actually will go there, for example, with accelerated math. Like when my kids were in middle school, in both years, I don't know if that's a trend, but they were the only Latino kids in the accelerated math class in all the sections. And there were hundreds of kids. I think there were at least 2 or 3 sessions of accelerated math, and my kids in each case were the only ones. And I would like to know why half of the kids, or the same percentage, if it's 20% in middle school, there are Latinos, why not? We have 20% of those in the accelerated math. Why the difference in percentage, and how can we do to repair that? And then how are, if this is a trend, is it something with our Hispanic kids or our socioeconomical disadvantaged kids, or also the other Spanish kids that come from Cupertino, although I know there might be a little minority, are doing, or how their socioeconomical challenge kids are doing there, just to, see if we can learn from each other. Maybe ours are doing better. I don't know. Those data are.
Absolutely.
Yes, sorry, so coming back then, down the road again.
And I just want to give a time check that we're,
Okay.
just time check that it's 7:00 right now.
Okay, yeah, let's, thank you, Mina, so Bridget and Nancy.
Okay, I'll be really quick. I just want to make sure that we do follow up with, if possible, with the high school district, because I didn't see any information from them regarding discipline or expulsion. I know their percentage is very low, but in talking to people from that district, the perception is it's all of our students and they're all Hispanic. And so I really want to know, it goes into the welcoming community, but it also creates an environment where if you have people on the school board and teachers, and you have people who really view those kids as discipline issues, or, like profoundly disconnected to the point where they're going to do something that's going to create an expulsion issue. I think that's something we need to understand really, and do some intervention, perhaps with the other district, and not only looking within ourselves, but like working together on that. And then my last little thing is I'd really like to have a follow-up understanding. I know we have, I know Jamie Bradley was explaining to us like a year or so ago, how when we were there for a site visit, I think Isabel and I were there, just really briefly, like how we work so hard to get our students reclassified to be English proficient, and we celebrate them for that. And some of them don't get there until 7th or 8th grade. And they might get that reclassification in 8th grade and be like, oh, great, I have all this flexibility in high school. And then they're reclassified as English learners at the high school level. And so it's very confusing for families and for students. And it's very disheartening because they put in a lot of work, and they sacrificed a lot. So I just really would like to, and some of them have been born here, they have never been out of the country. So I really think we need to understand together what that means, and like what their requirements are and what our real goal is for them. That's my.
I do want to clarify, they can't, once you're reclassified, they can't take that back. So they're not able to then call the student an English learner. But what might happen is they may be, due to what they're perceiving as not being as proficient or something in English, they may be placing them like in the goals class or some other class that is then prohibiting them to take either A through G requirements. I'm thinking that's probably what's happening. But I'm definitely going to bring.
A lot of head nods behind you as you're saying that.
Okay, so I'll definitely continue that conversation just to see, because I think that's really what it is where, when our students go there, if let's say they're RFEP, but do they do some sort of a screening assessment or something that they're taking into consideration, you know what, yes, you're RFEP, but we still think, and it may be a perception, it may be subjective, I'm not sure, that you still need to work on English, so we're going to add this additional class or something. So that would be interesting to look into.
What is goals?
It's a course at the high school. I don't know the details of it, but it is a course at the high school.
Jamie?
Do you know that course?
Goals?
I don't have the acronym off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not sure the summary information about it. I can get that too.
It's
Yeah.
growing our academic literacy skills.
I think it's a version of an academic support class.
Yes.
That the high school has.
So your acronym just sounded good.
But understanding how they're getting into goals, what kind of support, and there should be an exit strategy, right? Anytime you have one of these extra support, there should be a check also to exit them out of the additional support.
So to clarify, I remember a very long time ago, Graham was presenting to the neighborhood associations, and he said that all the kids in Fremont who were on the A through G track were comparable, I guess, to the kids in neighboring districts, to Los Gatos and Saratoga, and he said, I consider those our competitors. is that in contrast to the kids in the goals class? Are they then not on the A through G class?
I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure, but I don't think so.
Okay.
But we will check, we have it down to follow up on.
I think that's a question for that this year.
And to close, Nancy? You are muted.
So there's one data point that hasn't been mentioned that we should be able to follow up with, and that's those students who've been in our district from preschool. That's the longest longitudinal data point that we should be mindful of. And then the other thing you mentioned, that the high school district collects data differently. So I want to invite a conversation about what structures can we build that we might not now have to make the softer data perhaps that we're looking and seeing from Panorama or something similar like that, that talks more about the whole child experience, similar, or do we need to have a conversation about doing something different that can mutually meet our shared common interest and invest in something that is going to get the data points that we're really seeking. I'm looking at busting out barriers, but also helping us understand what your limitations are from the data that they are currently collecting, so that we can have more cohesive conversations with our colleagues at the high school district to have them aware of what we're interested in seeking and unintended barriers that might be there.
So kind of a more seamless data sharing.
Yes.
And then I just want to keep in mind that the first thing that you requested, Nancy, I would just also say, like, while that is helpful to know, like, hey, if a kid's been with us the whole time, how is that? Like, that's helpful, but in some ways it's also not helpful because we have very few of those students, right? So even if we're successful with those students, great, we still got to figure out the student who comes to us in second grade or in sixth grade, what do we need to do? So I don't want to forget that piece. I don't want to say, like, oh, look, if they're here with us to preschool, we're good, right?
That's a good data.
Yeah.
I'm curious about both, about how we are surveying our kids who start with us. I feel like that encompasses at least some of the community, and I want to make sure that they're being adequately served throughout their academic careers, as well as the kids the newcomers. I asked this to Graham, like, why does the data look like this? And he said they had such an influx of newcomers. And I feel like that's true, and we do too. And I want to make sure that those are served, but I also want to make sure we're not systemically excluding kids from preschool, because that would be terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so right now is 7:07. Maybe we should just keep going with, and we'll do a break later in the evening.
So do break after public comment, maybe?
Okay, let's do that.
Before we do, I want to thank Naomi for coming today from the Fremont High School Board. Thank you very much. And I want to let you know that we really appreciate the work of your staff and getting this data. This is kind of the first time we've asked for it from them, and they've been super cooperative and on the same journey with us. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And they also.
Thank you to Tasha and Jonathan.
Oh, yeah, them too.
For all the work you did. And to Naomi, who also, she did also the same trip that board member Steve, so she must be very tired, still she made it.
Yeah, so we're all on Nancy's time tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Had an after.
Okay, so let's start now with the next item. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And getting into this.
Should keep a lot of coverage.
I think it needs to go in public comment.
We're gonna have public comment in a few minutes.
You guys have public comments. Yeah, we're gonna move right into that. So actually, do you wanna have Should we have the comments before?
Well, are we gonna try to do our comments?
Just do our
Pretty
comments
quick.
first.
Okay, let's start with our comments from the board. So we're moving now to item 4, comments from the board and superintendent. And as usual, we're going down the road. We're starting, the farthest would be Florida. Nancy?
Hi, I would like to let the public be aware that the local planning council of Santa Clara County does have an opportunity for taking on new board members. You can look at the Santa Clara County Office of Education website. Applications are due tomorrow, but there still is time for openings. One of the openings happens to be mine. I am termed out after consecutive 2 years, and I've really enjoyed that opportunity to learn more and advocate for the early childhood community of parents, staff, and youth. The other thing I wanted to acknowledge is that San Jose State University is having an event this weekend to honor and recognize the initiation of their Asian Studies program and the evolution of an actual degree towards that. Their community activities all on Saturday afternoon on campus at their department. But it's exciting that we do have someone from our community, Paul Song, who has been a part of that, and he has grown in his leadership capacity as both of an educator and a public servant during that time. And he credits having that interface with being able to engage and learn more about his own community and be affirmed in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget?
We're moving from Florida to Texas. I'm here for a family wedding, and I'm really glad that I could kick my family out so I could have the opportunity to participate tonight. Wedding's tomorrow, not today. You know, I'm really chewing on the after-school bus service for SMS, and that's just what I want to devote my board comments to. Not the regular bus service, but just the idea for our middle schools, probably for CMS and SMS, just the idea of the importance of a later bus looping back to the middle schools because of all the engagement activities we were talking about. And I think the note that the board got back, you know, we were informed when my kids were there was an after-school bus that came so that students could, you know, have after-school help from their teachers or, you know, go to a club or an activity. And I wasn't aware that it was a short-term thing, but, you know, we were informed that it was because one of the bus drivers had a student at that school. And, you know, and then when their student wasn't at that school, we didn't have a bus there anymore because it was informal. And, you know, just the fact that for me, I know that it highlights this idea that, you know, it really was shocking to me in a way, because I felt like when I learned about that, like the importance of that person, like to actually stay late and you know, work extra hours and, you know, just kind of do it to support their own child. The fact that that was discontinued when their kid wasn't there, even though I'm sure it wasn't just their child on the bus. If it was, that would be a problem also. But, you know, it benefited so many kids during that period of time. And, you know, I just think it's really, you know, shameful that we don't have our systems together to support the kids who need it most. So I just hope that as we are going to take a look at our transportation again, I know we have things in the work, but I just I just can't say enough how upsetting it was to me. To just feel like it's okay to just do it for my kid, you know? And I love our bus drivers. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm using my moment. I'm using my minute at the mic. I know we're gonna go into stuff.
I think we're getting into a Brown Act because you're kind of discussing stuff. So like, are you wanting to agendize a discussion about this? I think that would be the.
I would love to agendize a discussion about including the after school bus for a late bus for our middle schools. And, you know, I think that we need to get an update, not just an update, but like better understanding of what's happening with the revised bus policy, and if it's possible to allocate additional resources in that area. Thank you.
Good, yes. Definitely, Eileen?
Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this short. I'm gonna try really hard. I just got back from Washington DC with, it doesn't sound like it's on, my mic is.
Try again, remember last time you turned it on and off, it worked. There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this short. I'm gonna try. I just got back from Washington DC with Michelle. We spent a few days in the Capitol advocating for with CSBA, and everyone at CSBA who went to that knows me as the lady who cries about special needs now. And that's fine, that's who I am. That was a topic on my mind because we're doing my son's triennial IEP. And one of the advocacy topics was fully funding IDEA, the federal mandate to fund special education. We also talked a lot about child nutrition, cybersecurity, broadband access, and a variety of topics. It was very nice, very helpful, very good to meet the other school board members. I was talking to Michelle about this, but going through DC, it's really hard to be cynical. Like, as you know, someone who is occasionally cynical about the way government works, it's like, oh, but look at that building is amazing. How did they put that together? Like, that thing looks so heavy. And walking around DC, you really see like, we can do great things. We can do so many great things when people come together and put their minds to it. And I thought that was really cool. I did manage to be cynical a few times. We went into the old Supreme Court room where 9 people sat on this dais and decided that people who look like me can't be citizens. So I did manage. I was almost late to the meeting today because I was reading the high school packet. The applications for the high school board were turned in today, and the interviews for that will be done on Monday. And I'm going to read a quote from this guy, Douglas Coombs, and I thought it was really good. I would slap it on a bumper sticker. I was talking to a friend who said that, and I agree. Amid the turbulence and change that our society is currently going through, the district needs neither arsonists nor uncritical cheerleaders on its board as it adapts to meet the needs of today's students. And I thought that was really cool. It's a little bit long for a bumper sticker, but I think that's true in a lot of ways, not just for school boards, but for government, for society, not just uncritical cheerleaders, but people who offer and strive for change. Done.
Thank you. Michelle?
Mine on? Yeah, okay. I have 2 kind of quick requests that are totally related for the coast to coast. One, if we could just make a note to maybe just have a discussion item, well, the meeting following coast to coast. Like, it would have been great if we could have had like 10 or 15 minutes while it was fresh for us. So if we could, I don't know if you like have like advanced note stuff, but just having a placeholder, like probably last meeting in April, we put a coast to coast discussion item, just so it's there would be great. And then related to that, I don't know if we'll have time, but could we possibly have a short 5-10 minute discussion at the beginning of, like, we have a couple of governance meetings next week. So if we're looking at schedule, if we have like 5 or 10 minutes to throw it on to the beginning, that would be great. Because once we get past next week, it'll be too not fresh for us to like have any meaningful like share out of the experience. But it was really great in case we don't get to, it was really great. And I'll just share one quote. We got to meet, well, not meet, but they came to us like live in person. Secretary Becerra and Nancy Pelosi, but Secretary Becerra came and spoke to us for a while, and he shared a quote from Frederick Douglass that I was like, oh, that's so good. And he said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And I just thought there's like more, like he kind of talked about, but I just thought that was really, really great. And I was like, that's what we're trying to work on, right? Is let's work on building strong children. And it's still hard, but it is easier than repairing broken men or women.
Thank you. Well, I will send my activities, I haven't done it yet, to Jesus, and I might include if I remember activities from last week. And in my comments today, well, I'm very happy that we were able to send to our delegation. That's an amazing trip, and hopefully I'll join next year again. And go on advocate for our children in the area and in the state. Last week, I think it was last week, so many things happened that maybe a little bit more than last week. We went to the Santa Clara County Chamber, and we were there advocating for improvement in our shelter here at Sunnyvale, but specifically for the conditions from children, our families in our schools. And well, again, they were all for it already. They're gonna start one study that is gonna facilitate the improvements in the shelter. But then still they allow for more comments, even though everybody was already very positive about this particular item. And they all agreed that this is just a bandage, and they will keep working with the city, and the county will keep working into actually having a full shelter for children and families right here in Sunnyvale. That is up to the levels of the other cities who are neighbors. Next week, well, in about a week and a half, we're gonna have the celebration for the Hoffman's Awards, where our county will celebrate our best projects in the county. Well, we're gonna recognize some of the best projects. There are a lot of good things happening all around, and for the ones who apply. And we are gonna celebrate one of our own too, our Junto program is gonna be there, and we're gonna celebrate with them. So congratulations again to everybody who worked on that. And I've been also working very hard with the CLSPA, and I hope we have a good group of people that is gonna go to our conference this year to talk again about the kids and the Latino kids who are behind, and talk about the gap, and hear and talk about ideas with everybody at the state level. That will be the last weekend of September. So yeah, I think that's for today.
Just a couple of updates. First, about our Measure GG bond offering that we went through this week. The summary, I'll give you a more comprehensive summary in either this weekend's update or the next one. But very, very good news. First of all, as you know, before you go out to sell bonds, we get a bond rating from the agencies, in this case, Standard & Poor's. We again have the highest possible bond rating of AAA. And I'll remind you again that that's rare for any school district, very rare for any school district, but especially for elementary school districts. The factors that they said that contributed to it, and I'll try to think of what some of them are. Obviously, one of them is the local economy. Very important is the board's 20% reserve. Our commitment to that and our ongoing commitment to that was cited as really important. Our other sources of revenue, including our leased properties, and they cited Sunnyvale Education Foundation as a source of outside funds, and really the stability of the board, stability of management, and the community support. All those factors and some others went into that. So that's really good news. Our team, Makiko and the people from Stifel that worked together on this project in DWK identified that we went out on Wednesday, that happened to be a very fortuitous day. And so the prices that we were able to command were really, really good. They do they test the market in the first thing in the morning, and there were 3 times as many offers as we had bonds ready to go, so that allowed us to adjust our price. So anyway, the long and the short of that is that it's actually a savings of millions of dollars for our taxpayers in the long run. And this will give us funding to complete Ellis and get started on Sunnyvale Middle School. So that's the good news from that. Second piece, I want to give a little update on our busing and just to roll us back. Remember last year we had 4 drivers, 4 routes. This year we added a 5th driver, but we haven't added a 5th route yet. So that's in planning for next year. So we're already up 1 for next year from last year. And I've also talked to staff and asked them to start pursuing yet a 6th bus driver for next year. We have to hedge because it's really hard to get bus drivers. And so I don't know what the timing will be. And like, what if one of the current, I don't know that this is going to happen, but if one of the current ones was to leave. So we're in process to increase our bus drivers. We are also pursuing grants for an additional bus. So we're moving in that direction. It's not something we can just snap our fingers and do to move all the way up to, ideal, but we're definitely doing all this while we're still collecting data from families about like where the need is, because we want to make sure we're being prudent with our expenses. So that's, I think, good news as we move forward. And I'll continue to give you and the community updates on the busing situation. That's what I have.
Good. Thank you. So that concludes item 4, and now it's time for item 5, comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. If there is an official representative online, please use the raise hand if you wish to speak. There you go.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Smith, and I'm the president of the Sunnyvale Education Association. I'm excited to be here tonight and to see all of you. As teachers begin to wrap up this school year, it's normal for us to think back on where we've been and how far we've come. And I wanted to take a moment tonight to thank this board for supporting the focus on equity in our district. And just hearing all the conversations tonight about the high school district, it was very educational for me to hear as well. We know firsthand that ensuring equity in education is a necessary component in narrowing the achievement gap. And as educators, we are well aware that equity in the classroom means making sure every student has the resources and support they need to be successful. We know that in an equitable classroom, individual factors don't hold back students from reaching their full learning potential, factors like race or culture. That teachers and school leaders ensure equity by recognizing, respecting, and attending to the diverse strengths and challenges of the students they serve. And we also know that we could not do this work without the support of our administration and the school board. So for that, I am here tonight to thank you. We know the journey has just started, but we are thankful that this door has been opened and to address issues in education that have often been overlooked. And one last thing, May 18th is our end of the year retirement party, so please save the date. We hope you can join us. Invites are coming out this next week with more details, but we're having it at the Metro again, at the Metro restaurant again in downtown Sunnyvale, and we hope that you guys will come out and celebrate this school year with us. And thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the 18th or the 19th?
That was the 18th.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. And that's item 4. Thank you, Wendy. And now we move to item 5, comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. And it's comments from the California Schools Employees Association. If there is any representative online, please raise your hand now. Start speaking. Jesus?
No raise hand, but someone's there.
Okay. Then our next item will be, there it is, item 6. We have comments from the California School Employees Association. No, that was the 6 already. 7. Now we move to comments from the public. And we do have people present at the moment. Okay, how many we have? 7. 7. Okay, so for the people who is online, please raise your hand and we will get comments. Do we have people online?
No one raised their hand.
Okay, so we can do then. Okay, we can do 2 minutes. We have 20 minutes. Perfect. So this is, we move to comments in 7. This is the time to comment about things that are not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the community and from the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act, Government Code 5494.2a and .3 preclude any action being taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. In plain speaking terms, the board can only receive information during this time. We cannot speak to or about any item that is not directly on the agenda. If you would like to comment on any item, not the agenda, and you're in person, please use your card, which we have here. And if you are online, please raise your hand feature now. The time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes in general. If there are more speakers, we can adjust time if anyone appear online. So far, I suppose we have it. And the speakers are asked to give their names and affiliation to the school district so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. If you're in person, please provide us with a card. If you would like to speak remotely, we use your hand feature. We'll say that 3 times as a reminder. Yes. Yes, I think that's it. Remember that by law, a specific provision of the Brown Act cannot be preclude for any action from us. So we're gonna start with Naomi Nakato Matsumoto, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naomi Nakano Matsumoto. I am a trustee with the Fremont Union High School District Board, but I am not here in that capacity, and I'm not speaking in that capacity. I am a proud parent of 3 Sunnyvale School District alumni, and who are doing well and thriving. And, you know, I think this school district helped build that foundation for them. I do want to add and say that I appreciate Sunnyvale School District doing this research and looking at the data at our school district at the high school level. And I ask that we continue this partnership, this dialogue. One of the things that I have really enjoyed in my now going on 5 years as being a board member is seeing the collaboration of our school districts. And very proud to say and very honored to say that not only are we all colleagues, all of us, but we are also friends. And so, and we bring together our true love and our commitment to our students and our kids, and to make sure that they are going to thrive pre-K now all the way through high school and then past that. And so we want to be partners in that. I know that there are barriers all around. I mean, when we first moved here, one of the things that I was asked is, what zip code do you live in? That should never be a question for any student or a parent to have to face. And that already pigeonholed me and my kids, right? I also had another parent come up and tell me some very derogatory things about the students in my son and her son's class. That should never happen. And I know that that's been, 10 plus years now, but in some ways it goes on. But I hope that those are not what we're continuing. I know that we are not continue, we're not gonna allow that as two school districts. And so thank you for all that you do. I am committed to Sunnyvale School District because that is where, you know, my kids grew up. And so I will do everything as I can as a parent, former parent of alumni, and as a school board member. So thank you.
Thank you. And now the next speaker is Patricia Carpio Aguilar. Thank you for coming.
Okay, now the mic is gonna go. All right. Thank you. Dear Sunnyvale Board of Trustees and Cabinet members, my name is Maestra Patricia Carpio Aguilar. I am a certificated employee of our district, and in this capacity, I address you today to share an equity concern that has been weighing heavily on my mind long before the virtual school experience of 2020. It has to do with the school calendar and the ways in which it impacts many of the students that I currently teach, as well as those whom I've taught in my tenure with the Sunnyvale School District. And because the way in which we choose to spend our time reflects what we value, I would like to bring to your attention the inequitable experience that the February break offers some of my students, particularly in a year like this one, where the weather has been extremely cold and very punishing to homes without central heating. ELD is a subject that is nestled deep within my heart because of the connections that I make with my newcomers and their families. And as an immigrant myself, I have experienced some of the hardships, and this shared journey allows them to trust me when speaking about their needs. One of the consistent stories that I hear when students return from February break is that they did not enjoy themselves because it was too cold at home. I recall one student just this year who mentioned that the portable heater in the house was turned on exclusively at night and then only in the bedroom where the parents slept with younger siblings. Since he's older, he slept on a couch with a lot of blankets, but still felt cold. So for those students in our district living in these or similar conditions, the time they spend in school not only offers them the opportunity to learn and socialize, but also a warm physical environment and at least 2 guaranteed meals a day. Such stories beg the question, who benefits from the February break and for whom has it been designed? I recently heard one African-American newscaster on a major network refer to it as bougie ski week. And he was recalling that he had never gone skiing as a child. Now, it's understandable that dismantling this allocation of time away from school systems takes a concerted effort, and that would involve the high school district into which we feed. However, our district has been a leader in enacting policies that erode systems of oppression or exclusion. For instance, right now, you're providing interpretation simultaneously, and that you're also keeping Zoom as one of the options. So, if there is a will to disrupt these systems that exclude, I would like the board to consider taking 1 or 2 days to honor President's Weekend, and then perhaps consider taking the remainder 3 or 4 days and adding them to Thanksgiving break. Or an even bolder idea would be to honor someone like Cesar Chavez in the last day of March. And in whatever way you see fit, I implore you to consider the why and the who behind the February break, because it negatively impacts the well-being of the communities in our district who may have to choose between putting food on the table or paying high energy bills in order to keep the heat at home. And you have demonstrated that you do take action to serve each and every one of our students, and for that, I am grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Nice, thank you. And now, the next person will be Peggy Brewster.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Peggy Shin Brewster. I am a parent of a second grader at Bishop, also the grants administrator for the Sunnyvale Education Foundation, and also the founder of Sunnyvale for Equity in Education. I'm here in the capacity as a private citizen. I am actually here to talk about transportation as well. I was very happy to hear these updates about hiring. But I also want to thank this district for the leadership. You know, when the email came out and it was asking about, you know, transportation needs, and there are all the priorities, safety zone and the distance and the low SES, ELL, like all of us in the community, honestly, like our jaws drop. You're like, this is great. Look at this, like really taking the initiative here. And so we're really heartened by that, taking leadership there. But I do also want to express that in the community, there's this sense like from SMS, like that, oh, something's going to be taken away from us in order to serve the needs of other students. And I know those buses at SMS are already full. So I'm hoping that we can serve all the students that have needs for transportation. So I appreciate that you're collecting the data and would encourage you to continue having those, the results, the needs inform the decisions you make. And the extracurriculars as well are very important. We're talking about, Amy, like belonging. If there is a way to bring back, not only expand the services back to the 4:30 bus for Sunnyvale Middle School, but also to establish that for the Columbia students, if that's indicated, I'd really encourage that so that we do have students that are successful throughout, you know, from our district to the next district. Yeah, so I really want to move away from like this a mindset of scarcity and look, if there's needs, where can we fill those needs? And I want to also mention that I would appreciate if we look into an equity task force or a specific person at the, you know, district office that has equity on his or her mind, on their mind, and that is their job. Because when we say equity is everybody's job, and we should be keeping that in mind, it's just so big, you know, like it's not everybody. We can't all make decisions with equity in mind. It's, you know, so deep. So I'd really appreciate it if you considered dedicated staff for that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person in line will be Ambrosia Stanley.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Ambrosia Studley. I'm on the Sunnyvale Education Foundation, as well as a member of the Sunnyvale Equity in Education. I have all the comments, but I'm just going to read what I wrote. So I'm a parent and leader in the district for 10 years, with students at Fairwood, Sunnyvale Middle, and my freshmen at Fremont. Before I make my comments about the new home to school transportation plan, as approved this past March, I want to share a quote I stumbled across recently that just really resonated with me. Are you fighting for your freedom or for your privilege? Sorry, it's taken out of context, but applying it to this, I've tried to keep something similar in my mind over the years as I advocate for my kids as well as their peers. First, I want to commend the district for developing a comprehensive transportation plan that includes additional service to Lakewood and to Fairwood. That is truly righting a historic wrong. So thank you for doing that. I hope that the district has secured additional buses and drivers as needed to implement this transportation plan in good faith. If you don't have enough buses, it sounds like you're working on it. For next year, hopefully it's going to happen. But please don't interrupt the bus service for Alice. This post-2020 bus service has been greatly appreciated. The students have been told that the bus is a privilege, but as parents, we really do know it's a luxury. It's the little thing that ripples through our lives, taking it away will have undesired effects in families, negatively impacting students. If there are not enough buses, I ask that you reconsider your priority statuses. Priority 1 should include families 3 miles or more away from their neighborhood school. There is no safe route to SMS for those of us on Evelyn, east of Fair Oaks. My son will share his treacherous journey riding on his bike in his own comments. Please reconsider priority 2. Students that live 1.5 miles include everyone at Ellis, everyone at Vargas, and some Cumberland families this side of Iowa. And that is just too big. There's no way to meaningfully implement this priority unless you have enough buses. And so if there aren't, what are you going to do? What is going to be the safe route? It's not my job to guess or, you know, think of the possibilities, but I do have lots of ideas if you want to know them later. Lastly, I really hope that you don't take away services from one part of the district meet a need in another. Of course, your job is to meet the needs of everyone, and especially those that need it first. I just wanted to point out English learners and low socioeconomic status are not included in priority 1 and 2 unless there's that geographic overlap. These middle schoolers talk, they're going to end up together at Fremont, and studies have shown that when there is a scarcity of resources, prejudice and discrimination increases. And I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. And now Graham Studley.
Hi, my name is Graham Studley. I'm 12 and I'm in 6th grade at SMS. I bike to school twice a week now that it's not raining. When I don't bike, I drive to school, and I take the bus home. And the bus stop is also 1 mile away from where I live, which is on Evelyn in between Fair Oaks and Wolf. So the route that I take to bike is I go down Evelyn to Sunnyvale Road, and then I go down Sunnyvale till Sunnyvale Saratoga, and then I go down Sunnyvale Saratoga until Remington, and then I go down Remington until I get to SMS. It takes about 20 minutes, and it is 4 miles long. I have had to swerve around roadkill and almost been launched off my bike by pine cones. I also go through 2 major intersections, El Camino and Sunnyvale Saratoga. If one of the Ellis buses was taken away, I would probably have to ride. I probably wouldn't be able to get on the bus because I'm priority 2, even though I live 3 miles away from school. Since I probably wouldn't get on the bus, I would most likely have to bike every day, which would increase the risk of some sort of accident. My older sibling also biked to school when they went to SMS, so we have experience biking and know how to be safe. However, there are many other Ellis kids that would be forced to find a different mode of transport other than the bus. There are quite a lot of people that maybe don't have the resources I have, and if they do, they might not be as experienced in road safety and might not choose a safe enough route. There are also not a lot of kids that I would trust to make a safe choice, like wearing a helmet or something. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our next speaker is Lisa Rodemander.
Hi, I'm Lisa Rademacher. I'm chair of the School Site Council at Sunnyvale Middle School. I'm also a member of the Superintendent Advisory Board, but today I'm here just as an SMS parent who's concerned. I'm also here to talk about and ask for busing for all kids in the district who need it. I was stunned to learn that our district does not provide transportation to and from school for all students who don't live a reasonable walking distance to their assigned school. Naively, I thought that was just a fundamental resource that a district provided its students. But I was even more shocked to learn that the district's new transportation expansion actually terminates several current bus routes, stripping some 200 students of their current school transportation. These are children whose only option, if their parents can't drive them, which we know is not easy for families, is to walk nearly an hour or to bike that distance, carrying 15-pound backpacks. I have weighed ours, 15-pound backpacks, because there are no lockers, along heavily trafficked streets, dangerous intersections, or they must try to find public transportation. These are children, some as young as 11 years old. Is it fair or reasonable to expect that they should have the stamina and the judgment to safely make such a trek? And this, after their parents, most of whom are minorities, Latinos, have worked so hard to secure housing in an area that had buses for their kids so that they wouldn't need to resort to these options. And I just listened, to a big discussion about the gap. This is the exact opposite of closing that gap when you place this burden on families and children.
And I want to mention that other parents keep telling me I must be confused because the district just sent an email saying they were expanding transportation. And nowhere in that email does it state that any bus routes are being terminated. There is a vague note at the bottom saying current transportation may not be guaranteed for next year. This seems to bury a very important detail, and I would argue that a lot of families do not understand that this is happening. All students in Sunnyvale School District deserve to have safe, appropriate school transportation. All students. No child deserves to lose their bus route, and I'm asking the board to please work with the district to make this happen. I know how deeply the board and district care about these kids. Please work harder to find a solution that accommodates all of the district's kids. Thank you.
That's it. No one is online yet? Okay, then we close that. Yes. And we move to.
Are we gonna take a break?
Okay, do we need a break? We need a break? Okay, so let's have a 5-minute break. Is 7:49. Let's be back at 7:55 and make it a 6-minute break. Thank you.
And are you, I learned.
Good, he said I could go. He said I could
Maybe
go.
I'll never do it.
I don't think that he said as long as the.
It's not good, so like, don't look so
Remind me.
like, make it just think original. Yay.
I talked to the attorneys
They
about
want
your
to
leave and everything,
social
so we can talk later.
social.
It's not a big deal.
Okay.
That's the.
There's a bit.
Okay. It's
What was
very.
that first thing, yours?
Witness
Yeah,
group.
so I can remember her name, because I couldn't remember her name, so I can't remember it.
So it's fine, it is.
Okay, and that's the one that.
I
So
was
I
like,
know that
Sarah,
the
Sarah,
APA
Sarah,
now
Sarah.
just needs to. Anyways, like,
They're doing it
well,
history.
no, it wasn't history, I was just like, I was on Tina Turner and I met
Oh, I didn't know that.
Sitting
You did a
next to the
presentation.
one day they actually, one is an older, who isn't part of them. And the other one was only.
Oh, sounds good.
We're starting on top there.
He's starting to talk.
I was thinking actually.
Oh, could be. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go.
So we are back, we're reconvening to session and it's 7:56, an extra minute. And so now we are moving to the next item, which will be our presentation for today, will be item 8A, Columbia Middle School presentation. And the contact person is its principal, Daniel Poe. Thank you for coming.
So, gracias. Thank you all. So my name is Daniel Poe. I'm the proud principal at Columbia Middle School, and I'm here to give the board presentation, kind of our current status of where we're at. So you have, I tried the best to answer the questions prior to, but I'm sure things will come up, so I'll go ahead and get started. But I do want to acknowledge my team behind me. I have Mr. Jamie Bradley and then Dr. Vicky Teramoto in the back, who are also here just in case you ask questions later on that I might not know the answers to that they're here for. So try to be prepared. So, all right. So on all my presentations, I always put that CS there, right? Which stands for CONSAFOS, which is with respect, especially when I present anything along with data, right? It's something that's personal, passionate, people work hard, we work hard with our students, and sometimes the data doesn't necessarily reflect that, right? So we want to make sure that we do everything with respect. So CONSAFOS. So our why. So when we look at this data, it's important to look at the students that are represented in this data, right? So for example, we have a sixth grader who's producing academically, 4s in all classes that are part of the Juntas program, proficient in English and Spanish. They have an elective of art and they have enrichment of after-school sports, right? Then we have a seventh grader whose grades vary, 2s, 3s, and 4s. They are reclassified. They have the elective of journalism, but they also need some additional support, so they have a flex power reading class. Then we have an 8th grader, academic and SEL concerns, 1s and 2s across the classes, has an IEP, still English learner, is a part of our STRIVE program, and does have truancy issues. Is a part of counseling, and their elective is AVID. So a lot of wraparound supports around the students and things to really try to help them, but we're not there yet with them. So we have a wide range of students that we serve at Columbia Middle School. So I want to start off with our academic data, and this is our reading data based off the NWA, which is the Northwestern Education Assessment tool that we use here at the district, which I used in my previous charter school prior to getting here many years ago. I could honestly say that now, right? 12 years. So our reading data, we are comparing here our beginning of the year and then trimester 2 data. So we did not see the growth that we wanted. We actually saw a decrease in our scores in reading. In 6th grade, you can see we're about 45% proficient, dropped down to 39%. And then in 7th grade, 43, dropped down to 32%, and then 48 went down to 44 and 8%. And I will have Mr. Bradley kind of speak a little bit more to this in a little bit. But since we have a focus of our English language learners, right, or emergent bilingual students, Also wanted to kind of see the breakdown data of how they are doing in the class. And as you can see, they're not performing as well as they should be compared to their counterparts. So we have them in 6th grade, 60% dropped down to 9, 8% dropped down to 4th, and then 8th grade kind of similar to what they did with the other one, kind of stayed stagnant, kind of close to where they're at from 13 to 11%. So now our math data. A little bit more promising here. And I think this has to do a lot with the DSS TOSA work that has happened with the individual students. But we had 6th grade, 35% proficient, dropped down to 32. I would say that's depending on a testing day, depending if all the same kids tested or not. In 7th grade, there was a growth from 29 to 35%, and then also growth in 8th grade from 36 to 38% proficient. When I looked at this data, because I did break down the math data, right, a lot of growth, especially in our advanced math courses, our big growth where students moved not only from like borderline proficiency to advanced. So that was really good to see. And there was also some growth from our Math 7 classes. But when we compare them and just look at our ELs, we see that 6th grade stayed the same at 5% proficient, and our 7th grade did have a 4% jump, where initially we had no students that were proficient. We had a 4% proficiency rate with our ELs, and then 8th grade also remained the same. So while we experienced the growth in overall grade level for 7th and 8th grade, we didn't see necessarily besides 7th grade, we didn't see the same kind of growth in 8th grade. So another component, because we have the Juntos program, right, that it comes through our school. It's also important to look at this data. So this is the first time we've actually been able to capture it. So in this data here, I compared how our emergent bilingual students, or the students that are in the Juntos program, how they did in both their English and their Spanish reading comprehension test during trimester 2. The reason why I don't have trimester 1 data is because we did the growth. We did the screener at the beginning of the year for Spanish, and that just kind of gives us a RIT score. It doesn't really give us too much, so it's difficult to extract that data. So I wanted to show how the Juntos students are doing in both English and Spanish. And if you see, our 6th grade is 48% proficient in English, and then 38% proficient in Spanish in the 6th grade level. And our 7th grade students are 52% proficient in English, and then 55% proficient in Spanish. I was curious about this data, right? I look at, I think there's a lot of different factors, but the one that I was looking at is the 7th graders were actually immersed longer before the pandemic than the 6th graders that are currently there. Also, the model was a little bit different. We had smaller classes last year in Juntos because of just how it worked out. So that was also a factor that we need to look at. Because last year, I think the cohort was about at 18 to 19 per section, and this year it was like at 30 because of the staffing issues that we have. So that was interesting. But I know I had a lot of questions. I'm gonna go back a couple slides here about this data, right? I know that was some questions that also came from the board. So before we even had those questions, right, I had Mr. Bradley do a deep dive. So he's gonna present some of his findings.
Yeah, you don't get to see the data out, so I'm going to talk about it, right? So good evening, everyone. I know that time is very much of the essence in these presentations, but before I start explaining how I looked at the data and pulled it apart, I want to make sure I acknowledge the work of our ELD 1 and 2 teachers and our ELA 7 and 8 teachers in providing anecdotal evidence and classroom observations to help me get a better sense of possible factors at play for the downward NWEA trend experienced by some of the students. Looking at broad data like this can sometimes be really overwhelming, right? And the data has the potential oftentimes to lead the reader off down a path of assumption making. So by slowing down and disaggregating these broad strokes of data into the academic lives of the individual students we're working with, we were able to reflect and hypothesize about the systems and structures in play and whether their efficacy is being maximized or not. So to give you a very kind of broad overview of what I was looking at, I looked in 4 places. So I looked at the PowerSchool grade trend for their ELA classes, right? I looked at the MTSS process, I looked at the SARB process, and then I obviously worked with the teachers on the campus for the ELA anecdotals. The way that it was pulled apart, I specifically was looking at students that had started at proficiency, or like, they were higher, they were green or dark green at the top, but then had slipped and then started making up the bands that were below 50%. And then some of them were even dropping even further. So these were the students I focused in on. So there was a grand total of about 40 students altogether, okay, over 7th and 8th grade that had started out at proficient or higher and then had slipped. So the first place I'm going to look at was, the PowerSchool grade trend for ELA. I categorized the grade trends as whether they were down, so whether they were trending down across the school year, whether they were static, whether they trended up, or whether they were unclear, so they were just hit and miss as they were moving through. And that was the standards-based grading that I looked at. The first kind of signifier is, do the grades mirror this NWEA data or not, right? So if they're tracking with each other, okay, well, there's, we could throw out some ideas there. What does it mean if they are? What does it mean if they're not? Then I looked at the MTSS process, which is really important. I wanted to know if any of the students in the group of 40 had been involved in any facet of the MTSS process. Did they turn up on grade level monitoring lists? Were PTS meetings held? How many? What were the outcomes of those meetings? Have that student ever been referred for counseling by any teacher? Did the needs require high-level support? Were 504s, IEPs, counseling offered? If not, were there missed opportunities for this support system to have intervened at some point? Then I looked at the SARB process. Has the student been involved in the school attendance review board process in any way, shape, or form? Has there been an intervention at the site level? Have they ever received a flag for attendance? Were they put on supervised attendance? Did they receive letter 1? Did they receive letter 2? Or even letter 3? What was the outcome of letter 2 at the site? What plans were written? Did the student follow them? If the absences were for chronic or repetitive illness, what steps were taken to support the student and the family? Again, if I was not able to check that box against the name, was there a missed opportunity that we had as a site for this support system to have intervened? I want to be clear that I framed this with the teachers that I worked with. This was not a gotcha. This is a let's look to see if the systems and structures that we have are being used the way that we think they should be being used. And finally, we come to that ELA anecdotal evidence. Nobody understands more about these students than the teachers working in the classroom with them, right? I'm at least 3 people removed from that, right? And I'm looking at it again in broad strokes of data. It's difficult for me to sometimes see the most clearest picture. Based on the information that I got from the teachers, they talked to me about test-taking behavior. They talked about academic areas for growth, like reading stamina. They talked about SEL factors that manifest in high-stakes situations. They talked about consistencies and inconsistencies on a daily basis in the classroom. And then we kind of sat as a team, and the way that I left it with the teachers to think about are there ways we can mitigate these factors for future testing if we know they exist now? Again, it's more of a reflective process for the teachers. It's not a do this, do that. It's what do we think we can do, all right? Ultimately, looking at all this data, there is no single way to keep moving the needle in the direction we need to go. There is no magic key that I'm going to put in the ignition and suddenly turn this around, right? But by continually analyzing and reflecting on our practices and systems, I think we're going to be able to start piecing together the puzzle and have things fall into place. I want to say thank you for listening to what I just had to go over right now. I really wish I could have shown you the sheet I work off, but it has student names and all sorts of stuff on it, so I can't present that. And I want to say thank you to the teachers at CMS who are heavily invested in doing this important work with me. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. And also, the data also just shows proficiency, right? It's not also growth. I used to do gainer sticker charts where it showed where the kids started and where they ended up. didn't do that for this time around, but then, because we also need to, I want to acknowledge the work that Ms. Kayla Singh has done as a support TOSA with our literacy focus, because she has moved the students up. Might not reflect on this data, but that's because they're the highest need students, right? So I do want to acknowledge her work and also our instructional coaches' work as well. All right. So next we have what the data continues to tell us, right? So for us, it's we need to change and align our practices, right? Based on the whole school EL special education group data that we have gathered. So all the data that we look at tells us this. This is something that we looked at our data from last year. We continue to look at our data, and it's still where we're at. For our focus is going to be AVID specifically, right? So AVID in terms of it being school-wide, in terms of the strategies. For those of you who don't know what AVID is, it's advancement via individual determination. While it is an elective class, the approach can be applied school-wide because it's the academic skills and abilities that students need to be successful to be college and career ready. So focusing really on reading, writing, and collaboration, instructional literacy strategies such as deep reading strategies and quick writes, and then a focus on language, making sure that our students are producing academic language through student structured talks. So it's all PD that we've been able to provide this year for our teachers. For those of you that have been with the district fairly long, this is I call it the original or the OG triangle that Mary Beth Allman had developed while she was at CMS, where it really was ahead of its time because it really looked at the whole child, right? Thinking about its needs. And I've made some tweaks to it in terms of building the foundation based off our strengths, which is the social emotional well-being, the school environment, and really because we have to focus in on instruction more, that's why instruction is kind of on top. The warm demander piece is we have to build a relationship with our students, right? And really care about them and know them to be able to push them in the right direction. But as we look in the instructional piece, since I have opted to kind of go with a kind of an AVID framework, it's looking at that instructional piece with this college and career readiness framework. Very similar, there are a lot of similarities between it. While they might not have the heart, they have that yellow triangle outside, which is relational capacity. The bottom base of the triangle is what educator agency is. So what we need to do as educators to support our kids, which is insist on rigor, break down barriers, align our work and advocate for our students. And then really for our students, what they need is really what we're trying to get to is the base is student agency, right? Having them believe in themselves and giving them the skill sets to be able to be successful, have opportunity, knowledge such as being able to create short-term, long-term plans, and also prepare them for rigorous classes, right? Algebra being one of them in high school, since we spoke about algebra, making sure that they're ready for that gatekeeper class. So this is kind of the framework that we're using to focus in and hone in on our instructional practices at Columbia. Good. Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry, I thought it went out of order. The other focus is really through the work that we're doing with Dr. Benson as a district has really pushed me to really look at our own kind of really be reflective on our own biases, right? And how our actions or inactions are impactful on kids, right? And so this isn't I'm not gonna say like we're biased, we have a deficit mindset. This is really about being reflective on our own practices, right? So we focused in on our Courageous Conversation Framework, which is by Glenn Singleton. And it really talks about passion, practice, and persistence. We talked about this today during our meeting with Dr. Benson. And it's really about, do we have the passion to continue working with our kids and doing everything possible to make sure that they're being successful? The practice is about really looking at our own beliefs and how do we continually do that, right? So, and then the persistence it's the adaptive change, right? With any kind of change, especially when it comes to mindset or practice, it's going to take a while. So we have to have that patience, but at the same time, urgency. And the way I've been doing that with staff is currently we are starting with the engaging conditions of really being able to create our own racial context that's personal, local, and immediate, right? You have to know yourself, where you come from, your background, your own racial autobiography. Then isolating race when it comes down to it, right? So if we are dealing in our school, we're a predominantly brown school, right? With still predominantly white teaching staff, right? There's gonna be some clashes there. So we gotta understand that and reflect that. There is no this dichotomy of a good or bad person. It's not that. It's about being reflective about like how this could play out. And it's important for us to be reflective on that and understand that, hey, there might be some things that I'm doing or not doing that are impacting my ability and my students' ability. So this is really a reflective process. So our average, I know there was a question about this, was 68%. So I kind of surveyed staff in terms of like from 0 to 100, how much does race impact your life, right? And this was our average, was about 68%. And what that really tells us is kind of this is the racial consciousness kind of flow chart. And that number tells us is what you don't know, or what I know, right? So from this range of 66, there's some people that are like 1%, race impacts me 1%. And then there's some folks that are at 100%, right? So we're just trying to meet people where they're at because this is their own personal journey. But the part that we really got to work on is if we're at 68%, we got to focus in on the other 32%, because that is the unconsciousness. That's what we don't know, right? So we might know, and so I don't know, but I think I do, which that's a great place to be. I don't know that I don't know. But as I mentioned before, what we need to get to is I know, right? So it's about will and passion. You have to be able to take those additional steps and reflect on yourself and be passionate about this work to get to that level. And I did a whole PD on this with staff, so I know I'm just throwing a lot of theory and stuff out there, but it's been impactful, right? In terms of like when I look at feedbacks, staff is really appreciating the work that's happening with these conversations, right? And the tools that they're being given to start having these conversations. We're not there yet, but we're just starting this journey. So for the remainder of this year, the saying that I've been saying a lot at staff meetings is right now, it's my journey, my will, my push, right? With the hope that next year becomes our journey, our will, our push, right? Because we all have the same end goal in mind. So we have to align our work, we have to align our practices, our beliefs, and get our kids to where we need them to be. So that's the big component in terms of academics and beliefs. But then we also got to look at the school environment, right? How are we doing it as a school for our kids? And our behavioral data, right? Sometimes we have to find ways to correct behaviors that aren't ideal for our campus. So here you can see that this is our referrals by month, and these different lines represent the 25th percentile of the median. We are actually way below that. I think when I first got to Columbia back in 2011, we were way over this data. We used to average above the 50th percentile easy, almost probably hitting that 75th percentile. So we have done a lot of work with PBIS and we've changed it now from SR Squared to Bulldog Pride to really building that out this year. And we've noticed the difference because we have these systems in place. In terms of suspensions, I think after today, I think something we want to explore is to see alternatives to this, to suspensions again. But we have used them, and a lot of the times where it does happen, it's because there's things that happen that kind of, we feel it ties our hands a little bit, right? But we try to be as restorative as we can, but we still feel with restorative practices, there also has to be a consequence to it. It can't just be a one and all restorative, right? There has to be some kind of a consequence that goes aligned with it. And then our behavior, this has been interesting. It used to be that the top three behaviors were always defiance, disruption, defiance, disrespect. That's kind of changed post-pandemic. It's been more physical aggression and like inappropriate use of language. So how kids are socializing with one another. So I think this is a major impact that we got to continue to look at and continue to look at this trend for students that missed all those years of school and missed that social interaction. And I know from talking to other principals around the district and other principals that I have outside this district, this is a trend that's not just with us. And then while we're in this work, we sometimes think, oh man, there's so many behaviors happening, but we use SWIS to be able to tell look at this triangle report. And what this tells us is it tells us that students that receive 0 to 1 referrals has actually increased, which means there's less students getting referrals, right? That's what we want. It's almost a 5% increase there. And between 2 to 5%, we've also dropped that percentage, right? And then our outliers are like tier 3 students are still just at a 0.52. So we're moving students from having behavior issues to not having fewer behavior issues in class. And I think really the part of why that's happening is because of our focus on SEL. So for those of you who don't know, we have a STRIVE program on our campus that consists of a teacher and then a behaviorist and behaviorist social worker. And so it's a group of 3 adults that work with a small targeted population of students. We look at data and we've kind of made a shift from what was more behavior, right? It was students that had more behavior issues to students that needed more SEL, more love, and more focus on academics. And we've done it now for math and ELA. We serve 18 students, and out of those 18 students, 2 have graduated this year. So it's been a great thing. We do have an actual STRIVE showcase happening on May 16th, like at between 9 and 10:30, if some of you can make it. I'll send out an email reminder. But it'd be a great opportunity for you to see what STRIVE has really been up to this year. Our restorative practices, I'm proud to announce that we launched our Peaceful Bulldogs peer mediation, right? So that was established this year. So we currently have a total of 28 peer mediators on campus. Yeah, that's a lot. We have 28 peer mediators, and this has really been through the work with Dr. Teramoto and Mr. Brian Brown, who joined our team this year. He's really taken a lot of this restorative practices stuff and made it his own and has been able to roll out the peer mediation program. So we've had a total of 28 mediations. For those of you that don't know how long a mediation actually takes, it's actually it's very time consuming because you have to follow up with every person and get every side of the story, bring them together and get them to go through a process, build agreements, and then follow up with them. So this has been a huge success for us, which I would honestly say has limited referrals because we're able to prevent the conflict before it escalates. Counseling in Action, thank you for the partnerships with CHAC and with all the interns that we have. So we have 335 students that walk into counseling, 86 that have steady counseling, 30 students in group counseling, 9 that are currently on the waiting list. And then we have 4 families in the parent project. We had more, but it started during the rough storm time. So we lost a couple of them. They didn't show up and then we just never got them back. And then our extracurriculars, we were talking about earlier about kids finding their place, right? I think this is one of our strengths. We have the after school sports, Beyond the Bells. We have Dr. Teramoto's now more popular than My Magic Club, Pokemon Club, that has taken its place. Chess has all of a sudden found a place at Columbia. If you go into our library, chess is very popular. Our library at lunch is the place to be. With student action, but it's also so it gives students that might not have a place to be now, right? And then for everyone else, there's still the sports, there's still the starting arts play, avid field trips, right? So we're trying to recruit that, so that's UC Berkeley. So we're really trying to find and create opportunities for our students, right, as best we can. Parental involvement. So with parents, I'm a big advocate that it takes a village. So I'm trying to get more parents onto campus. One of my goals on our comprehensive school safety plan and my SIPSA is providing more opportunities, right? It's hard to gauge how many parents actually walk through the door, but let's provide opportunities for them to walk through the door. So we have an active PTSA board. Last year we had 16 PTSA members. This year it's actually more now. We got how many? So we have 79. So we went from 16 to 79 paid memberships. So that has been a great thing. We have a full school site council, and our partnership with the Family Engagement Institute out of Foothill College has a cohort of 23 families who just went to their college day on Earth Day. I remember it was on Earth Day, so last weekend. We have the Columbia community, we try to bring them in, right? So it's about, this year we tried something new. We did an eat and greet event where parents were able to come onto campus, have lunch with their kids, right? We played music, so it was a great event, well attended. We have band concerts, starting arts, we have multicultural carnivals. Our boys soccer team actually won the league championship this year, which is the first time since 2013. So that was huge for them. We've had 2 Avid nights, and then we had a very successful multicultural carnival that was put on by our PTSA, which was also attended by some of you, and also the mayor, which was really nice to see. So thank you for supporting us in those endeavors. So really great community events that we've been putting on. And that is all I have. So that is the end. And once again, Gonzalez, with respect, are there any questions?
So thank you. Thank you for putting that much work. Let's start with our board comments. Oh, yes, before we start. Comments. We need, well, this is the time for
I just asked if there's any public comment that maybe.
Is there any public comments? This is time for comments. Is there any public comment online? On this item? Okay. So before we start the comments from the board, I think we need to. It's just a presentation. This is a presentation? Okay. Who wants to start with some questions and comments? Oh. We had 1 person, 2%. Okay. Let's do public comments then.
I don't think there's not public comment, is there?
I have one.
Oh, there is.
She just raised her hand.
Oh, I thought so. Okay, 1 public comment. Okay, then let's do some public comments on this particular item. Now is the time for public comments. Please use the raise hand. We have 1. Remember that the time limits are still 3 minutes per person and 20 for the whole space of public comments. And please give your name and affiliation so we can keep an accurate record of who is being part of it.
Hi, can you hear me okay? I'm making dinner at the same time.
Good.
This is Allison Joe. I just wanted to thank Mr. Poe for his presentation about the middle school. And it's nice to hear an update because I don't hear that many details from my 6th grader. But I know she's involved with the counseling program and she's been really excited about it and really excited to be a part of it. And it's nice to hear that they make a difference on the campus. And I'm having a little trouble getting her engaged in other things. And she's very shy. She's an introvert. We're just trying to find her path. So I appreciate that there's these opportunities for her and other kids to find a place where they can contribute and belong. And we're really proud to be a part of the Bulldog family. So thank you.
Okay, that's good. So Jesus, anybody else?
That's it.
Okay, then thank you for that. Now board, well, we don't have to approve, so, oh, we have 1 more? Yeah, we have time for that. No.
There's 1 more public comment.
Yes, public comment. Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lori Thomas. Thank you so much. It was great to hear this whole presentation. My daughter is a 7th grader at Columbia. I'm an active member of the PTSA. I think the whole leadership at Columbia is spending a really great time. I do think that, to Allison, that the 6th grade is a little bit of a transition, especially when they're coming back from COVID and stuff. But I would highly recommend the Honor Society group, Junior Honor Society, has been amazing. I love all the volunteer opportunity they've had. And then the after school sports are really amazing. I love those. Boys soccer did really well. I think it's the whole coordination to go. I guess there's a bunch of people going to Disneyland for choir and band. I live near Columbia. My eyes are really opened. It's a special place. And I really appreciate that there were so many people that came out for the multicultural
Carnival. And I'm looking forward to, well, many more years there because I have a younger one too. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, so we start with the board comments. Bridget?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the presentation and to say how much I love CMS. I love going to CMS and seeing the kids and attending the multicultural festival and volunteering there. It is a really special place, and I'm glad you had a couple parents tell you that tonight. And I also just wanted to say to Mr. Bradley that you're okay, the whole presentation was amazing, but just you running through the process of like the deep dive in data digging, I guess that's a lot of D's in one sentence. But I really, I really love just how you just like dug into it and went after it. And it was entertaining, but more importantly, inspiring, because it's just so clear that the passion is there. And you know, Mr. Poe, your leadership is just so appreciated. So, and your whole team is just really fun to watch in action. So, thanks so much. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Too often.
Alright.
So funny.
Hello? I'll try again. Hello?
It's my quiet. We're just gonna
My mic doesn't work. I want to say thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate the intentionality with which you outlined everything, Mr. Bradley, and that Mr. Poe outlined everything that the school was doing. I also really appreciate, I am like a weird chess fanatic, and I really appreciate that the students have picked that up, because I think, you know, chess is a great leveler. All you need is a board and some pieces and your brain, and then you can go, and it doesn't really matter where else you're coming from. This is where you are, and this is what you have. I also wanted to say that I really appreciate seeing the peer mediation and hearing what Mr. Brown was up to. He was my son's assistant principal at Lakewood last year. I'm a little bit selfishly bummed that you took him from Lakewood, but I'm glad to hear that he's doing well there and has this program that seems like it's doing very well as well. Thank you so much. I'm also curious, what do you need from us? I want to know what we can do to better support you and your staff.
Do I answer or wait till?
Yeah, you can. Well, go ahead. Yes.
So I think, so currently we're revisiting our bell schedule to kind of flip some things around to see how we can provide more academic support for students and also more enrichment opportunities for students. So there might be a time where I come and ask for more additional funding for that, because I think it's important, right? Especially where if we're really focusing on building off students' strengths, sometimes it's not going to be academic, so we have to find their area of strength first and then build off of that. And I think with my shrinking in enrollment, my electives program hasn't been as strong as it was in years past because of just because of staffing and just because we're down like 250 students from when I first got there, I think, right? So that's huge, right? So I think at one point when I know from students what they need and what they want, you'll hear from me.
And Nancy?
So once a bulldog, always a bulldog. It's been an exciting journey to see how the philosophy and the supports of PBIS have continued to grow through the years. You've been a lighthouse from the very beginning, and how you're really taking it and making it your own in the development of the additional academic supports that are required. I think it takes an exceptional leader to lead a courageous conversation. And so I appreciate that you're creating an atmosphere in which the staff can unpack important realizations about themselves so that they can be present with students and look at how they can team together with the students in the community and their own peers to enhance student success. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not much, I'll just ditto what Bridget said about, I appreciated the like diving into like kind of the process of like when we see numbers that like, hey, this doesn't look so great, like how you dive in and what you're looking at and all that stuff. So that was really helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Oh, Nancy, do you want to speak again or? Oh, okay. Well, thank you for your hard work and for being great leaders with your team. I know that you work very hard and that you see the kids and care about them. And thank you for showing us, you know, all the work you do behind data. And I know like hopefully with that diving, you're gonna be able to find your own answers later and somehow digest that. I also like a lot your style on you know, bringing the flex classes and bringing a lot of interest and how that, you know, give a lot of support to the kids to express themselves in different ways. And your commitment to Strive is pretty good. You have 18 kids and only one cohort of Strive for those 80 kids. You have also a flex class.
So we have 18 that are like fully immersed in the program. So they take ELA and math with Mr. Gonzalez, but then we also have a flex class. So then that's kind of our extended Strive list. So currently Strive is all 8th graders, like math 8 and ELA 8. But our extended Strive is we're starting to see now, it's toward the end of the year, we're starting to see students that maybe need a little bit more TLC. So we're starting to introduce them to the Strive team so that they can start building those connections. And there's also some kids that opt in and be like, hey, I just want 2 extra adults to talk to, that I need that additional support. So there's also that kind of presence with Strive, that they see that, hey, my friends are getting support, why can't I go hang out in the Strive room and be a part of that program? So we don't close anyone off from it.
Well, thank you for your hard work, and yes, we love the dogs everywhere. They're so cute, like you have hundreds of them. Okay, well, thank you for your presentation, and we're gonna keep moving then to item 9.
So before we move on, can I say one last thing, right? So I know I appreciate all the kudos, right? But really the kudos belongs to the teachers, right? They're the ones in the front lines working with our kids day in, day out, through the good days, through the bad days. Right, we're here to support them and try to make their job as easy as we can, right? But it's really them, right? They're the tone setters. So I want to acknowledge the teachers at CMS for the fantastic work that they do. And we have Ms. Maestra Carpio here, so I definitely want to make sure to acknowledge her as well for being here on a Thursday night at 8:30 a.m. So thank you. All right, Dios.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, so now we move to review and discussion. And the first item, 9A, will be review and discussion of board policy 3470, debt issuance and management. And the contact person will be Laura, but it can be, yeah.
So this is a new board policy, as the description says, and so there's some questions in Hackett review about this as well. It was recommended by the Standard and Poor's team. There was a sample policy from CSBA that we used for that. And so it's here for your review this time.
Okay. So in order for us to discuss, we're gonna start with public comments. Do we have any public comment on this particular item, 9A?
No.
Okay. So board, do we have, you don't need a motion for each of them? Okay. Oh, it's not action, it's review and discussion, so, okay. Who wants to start?
Sarah, we all good, putting it on consent, it looked good?
Okay. Okay, then we move into consent for next time. Now we are gonna go to item 9B, review and discuss board policy 3515 about campus security, and the contact person will be Brad Burns, Director of Facilities and Operation.
It's right there.
Oh, online, there you are. Hi.
Hi.
Brad.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for letting me do this virtually. I very much appreciate it. Sorry, I'm not there in person though. So I wanted to bring this board policy forward to the board tonight. I think everything that needed to be said was in this summary. And some of the questions that you all had were really good. I believe that, after further evaluating, campus security and the installation of security cameras, the benefits and the positives that could come from these would outweigh any of the potential negatives or downsides. And this comes with, lots of discussions with site administrators, other districts, our local DPS, our Department of Public Safety individuals. And I know this is a topic that is, there's two sides to this topic, and this board policy being presented to you tonight is one that has come after a lot of discussion and evaluation. And I would love to hear the board's concerns or questions and anything that I can do to help push this forward.
Good, so board, any questions? Do we have any public comments on this item?
No.
Okay, board, any questions?
I would say you might not a question, just, I had some questions, right, kind of, and you answered it in packet, and then you also answered a lot of it just right there with what you shared, so I appreciated, right, like hearing a little bit more about the process and the thought and like all the people that had been reached out to and talked about, so that helped me with the concerns that I had.
Okay.
Eileen? Hello?
And Eileen, I can hear you when you're at your other mic. I don't know if your mic's working or not, but I can hear you just fine over there.
It's not, I want to be kind to the translator, but I agree with Michelle. You did a very good job with the packet, in packet answering the questions, and I really appreciated that. I did initially have some concerns about privacy issues, but it seems like many of those were addressed, at least to my specifications, I guess. Thank you.
Of course.
Nancy?
My comments are that I appreciate that it's a very well vetted policy, and it has not only the broad view of the entire policy that would be appropriate throughout the entire state, but you've curated it individually for Sunnyvale specifically. So this isn't a rubber stamp policy. And you answered my questions about individual employee rights within how the contract language would really play out, and that was very helpful in allaying any concerns that I had about how this was going to be used appropriately for any additional feedback that employees would need specifically to the incident that would be under review.
Thank you. Bridget?
So, I support this policy in general terms, just because I think it's helpful to have information when you're trying to, especially if, there's any kind of an assault or incident that we need to do some fact finding, having some video like in a highly, highly populated area, might clarify some things. But do sort of want to reserve that it isn't, you know, I think that it was mentioned that looking at the middle schools as a starting point, it was mentioned that doing it for both middle schools would be $70,000. And, you know, in my mind, I'm not sure that it's, like, if we can find the, money to do the things that are the student focused side of things for those middle schools, then I have no problem with the cameras. But if it comes down to we're 70,000 short for a bus driver, you know, or whatever, like I really want to emphasize that it is just a little bit lower priority for me. But I do really appreciate the way that facilities has been taking care of things, and you know, like literally broken windows are being fixed, and I know that we would like to have some more prevention around vandalism and other things that are happening. So you know, in general, I am supportive, so thank you.
Of course. And I just want to, Bridget, just make sure I had this note correctly, like supportive is as long as the budget is there and it's not taking away from any other support systems that would be given to the middle schools, correct?
Well, not just any other support in general, just like if we as a board are able to kind of come in with priorities for facilities and operations, you know, so not that, not like, oh, no other priorities, but if we just said like, hey, well, we could have this and we can have that, but we can't have both. I know where I would vote, and, you know, with the board, I would like the board to be able to say that, not say, well, we're going to bring this back to you and we want you to approve $70K for both middle schools. And, you know, we support the idea, so we just say yes, but then it's like, well, and you don't have money for that. So we're just like, I'm just being a little cautious because there's just some issues that are sensitive right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
And just to be clear, this is the policy, this isn't the implementation. So you could approve the policy and then down the line, we can make decisions about how we implement it.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question. Is this in response to the surge in school shootings?
No, not in response. Obviously, it runs parallel with this, but this has been something that has been discussed over the last, let's see, well, I guess 12 months, but we really kicked it up at the beginning of this school year. I will say that, you know, both CMS's staff as well as SMS's staff have been like very forthcoming and helpful in like gathering some of the information and data to look at. But to answer your question, no, this isn't directly a response to the school shootings. This is kind of looking at it of a more global student safety as well as, you know, behavior and vandalism on our campuses.
Thank you.
Okay, volunteers. Thank you. And then, yeah, in general, I think I feel the same for the safety of our children and of our school facilities and for the peace of mind. So teachers and staff, I support in general. This, again, yes, as an implementation, we always have to be student-centered. So the priority should always be the students before anything else, but yes. Thank you.
So now you have going, well, I'm saying like, so going on consent, the policy.
Yes,
right?
I think we can go on to the policy consent later. So now the next, thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. And then we are moving to the next item, which will be review and discuss of policy 4030, non-discrimination in employment, and the contact person will be Jeremy Ishihara,
Yes.
Superintendent.
Thank you, Isabel. The policy draft before you is just an update of Board Policy 4030, non-discrimination in employment. This policy is a very important policy that's been in place but the update primarily adds the reproductive health decision, making it as a form of prohibited discrimination and prohibits an employer from requiring an applicant to disclose information related to an employee's reproductive health decision-making. So again, a very important aspect. However, this was never a practice in Sunnyvale, I'm proud to say, but this just keeps our policy up to date with the CSBA sample and the new law SB 523.
Okay, any comments from the public on this item? Not yet, okay, then, yeah, we should be able to see there too. Okay, so, board, any comments or questions on this particular item?
I'm good putting it on consent.
Okay, so let's put it on consent, if everybody's okay with it.
I was just saying, I don't know if anyone noticed, I like tapped Eileen. We just, part of our fun, like not advocacy related, we gotta watch, you can go get gallery passes and watch like the Senate and the House. And we actually watched a Senate debate related to this idea that like women should be free to do their reproductive, whatever it might be, without people asking them about it. So we just had we heard a relevant debate about that recently.
Very timely.
Okay, so that will be, we will be able to pass it on the next agenda. And now the next one will be a review and discuss of the board policy for 119.24, maintaining appropriate adult-student interactions. And this is also from Jeremy Nishihara.
Yes, thank you, Isabel. This policy is another very important policy in trying to maintain a safe environment for our students. It is great, or it's been pointed out that it's good that we've had the existing draft, the 4119.24, and you will see that this update adds a list of 13 items just to kind of be on the lookout for that could cause examples of inappropriate conduct that could put our students at risk. So the fact is, if adopted, this policy would go from good to better. And then once adopted, it's going to then be able to take it to best practice in the sense that then we can actually start implementing trainings for volunteers and staff members, eventually in discussions with teaching and learning department to add awareness from students about also their how to be aware of what healthy relationships are with adults. So it's just kind of this opportunity to make something. Please bear with me on this one, and I hope the translators get this right. We are trying to maintain and make Sunnyvale a inhospitable environment for child predators. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're just trying to just create a safe environment by raising awareness and making it very difficult for our students to be taken advantage of.
Perfect. So any public comments on this item?
No.
No. Okay, so the board, any comments or questions on this item?
Sorry.
Oh, it's working.
So 12 is encouraging students to confide their personal and family problems and or relationships. That's clearly outside of the context of something like counseling, yes?
That is correct. There's educational purpose is clear throughout that if there's, the behavior supervisor, they had questions, it really is putting that context that if there's a appropriate educational reason for that, that is appropriate. If not, then it's not.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so. Oh, Nancy?
Yes, I did want to make comment about number 8. Not only is it appropriate to include, it's also part of the NAYEC accreditation policies that they do look at staffing and how they are addressing interactions even with very young children, that some things that we think are culturally typical and we may have had them modeled for us unintendedly may set children up for inappropriate relations at older age. So just not having them begin with those practices in classroom settings is very appropriate. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I know. It's just such a disturbing thing to have to think about, honestly, because we're really trying to get teachers to connect with students, but we don't want things to get creepy, weird, or predatory. So I just want to thank you for providing this language and the commitment to do training next year. And, I support this policy. Thanks.
And thank you, Bridget. And yes, I think the point I wanted to make about when we take this policy, if adopted to BEST, is this is not a adopted and then done. This is a start of then this awareness campaign, if you will. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I think we're ready to pass it to the consent agenda. Understand? Okay, and then we move to the next item. Let's see. Review and action. So the first one will be the approval of the memorandum of understanding between Sunnyvale School District and the California School Employee Association and its chapter 205 or the CSEA, increasing the work year for 183-day and 184-day classified employees to 185 days. And the contact person is Mr. Jeremy Mishihara again.
Yes, I'm on a roll. So the MOU, I'm very excited to bring the MOU in front of you. In a nutshell, this is basically increasing the paid work year for about 125 of our employees. The classifications are listed there. The net of this is basically, I would file this under innovation because we actually started having this what if conversation in the fall. And I want to credit a lot with our CSEA bargaining units for working alongside with us to kind of develop this concept because it may seem pretty simple, but there's a lot of moving parts and even executive cabinet and cabinet was involved in trying to plan all of this out. So this really was, it looks simple, it's a no-brainer because why wouldn't we want for example, our new TK paras starting on the first day that the teachers return together so that they're coming for class. Whereas in the past, the paras start on the first day of school. So that's just one of the examples. And so a lot of analysis went into this. This is a great allocation of resources. And so again, I'm happy to bring this forward to you. It was a long time in the making and we were up against the deadline because we need to give employees notice that the first day to report next year is sooner. So I'm encouraging you or recommending that you adopt this MOU as presented.
Any public wants to speak about this item?
No.
Okay, board, any comments or questions?
We need to make a motion.
Oh, yes, this is an approval. So is there a motion for this item?
I will motion that we approve the approval of memorandum of understanding between Sunnyvale School District and California School Employee Association and its chapter number 205 CSEA regarding the increasing the work year for 183-day and 184-day classified employees to 185 days.
That's a long one. I'll second.
Okay, good. So any discussion on this item?
I'm really appreciative that we're doing this. I have heard from people on Parents Helping Parents that this is something that various people are trying to get past, maybe at a greater level, at a county or a state level. I have a friend whose child had an IEP and was an eloper, and the para didn't have time to read the IEP before school, and the child ended up leaving the school campus and ended up being found in a Safeway parking lot about a mile away. And I think this is a great step for our district in enabling people to come to school prepared to take care of these kids.
Perfect. So, well then, board, are we ready to vote or there is more discussion on it? Ready to vote? Okay. Everyone, please, in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye, and with that, the motion is passed. And then we go to the next item in the consent agenda. No, this is
10B.
10B. Sorry.
It's Jeremy.
Okay, and the next item will be another memorandum of understanding, and the contact is Jeremy. When I find it, I'll say what it is.
Thank you, Isabel. The next MOU in front of you is with CSEA, and it is to increase the hours for library resource specialists, campus assistants, and computer specialists. Again, I think super excited to bring this one to you. I was excited before for the first one. I'm super excited for this one. This is in the vein of professionalizing all of the profession, especially in our classified service, for increasing and bringing the hour increases to these classifications. And so, yes, this will also be supported. If you notice, there is a middle school heavy slant to the support here. And so, yeah, this is just the next step in professionalizing our professions for retention as well as recruitment in trying to make these classified positions viable careers for all. So I recommend that you adopt the MOU as presented.
Perfect. Any public comments on this item?
No.
Okay. Board, do we have a motion for this item?
I move approval of the memorandum of understanding between Sunnyvale School District and California School Employee Association and its chapter 205 CSEA regarding increase of hours for library resource center specialists, campus assistants, and computer specialists.
Any second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussions or comments on this item from the board?
It's good.
Okay. So,
No, I just want to say this is a great idea and good job. Thanks. I'm excited. I'm excited.
With that, if please, if you are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. With that, the chair moves ayes, and with that, the motion passes.
There we go.
And now we have 10C, the approval of the memorandum of understanding between Sunnyvale School District and California School Employees Association and Chapter 205 and the Article 11 on reclassification from 2022 to 2023. And the contact person is Jeremy Nishihara.
Yes, last but not least is this third MOU with CSEA, and yes, we can, even though we have a closed contract, we continue to meet every 2 weeks, which is paying a lot of dividends. We do have to, by the contract, revisit reclassification every year. So this MOU is a result of this year's process. Basically, employees have an opportunity to submit a reclassification request by January. Both parties evaluate, and then it really allows us the opportunity to make sure that our employees are performing the proper duties within their classifications, and in some cases they are not, and it yields these reclassifications requests. So I do want to give a shout out to both negotiation teams. In this case, we had to come together to tackle these, but in the spirit of our both interest-based and great collaboration, we were able to reach agreement, and it is my recommendation that you approve this MOU between SEA and the Sunnyvale School District regarding the reclassification request received for the 22-23 school year.
Perfect. Any public comment on this item?
No.
Okay. Do we have a motion for this board?
I move to approve the approval of memorandum of understanding between Sunnyvale School District and the California School Employees Association and its chapter 205 CSEA regarding Article 9 reclassification for the 2022 to 2023 school year.
Any second?
I'll second it.
Good. Okay, with that, any discussion or questions about this item? No? Okay, with that, we move to vote. Everybody who wants to pass this, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, with that, the chair moves aye. And with that, the motion passes. And we can move to the next consent agenda item. Any item in the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to be approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed for separate action or discussion. The public may address the board regarding any item or items on the consent agenda. If there is any member of the public who wishes to speak on any of them, please use the raise hand now. Nope. Okay, okay, no public comment. Board, do you want to take any item out of this for discussion?
I move approval of the consent agenda as listed.
Okay, any second?
I second.
Okay, so anyone in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, with chairs move aye. With that, the motion passes. We approve the consent agenda. Now, the next item, it will be public comments, information agenda, sorry. We have item 12 will be the information agenda, 269, exhibit 1330, the use of school facility, and the contact person is Brand Burns, Director of Facilities and Operations.
There's no discussion.
We don't talk about this.
Okay. Good. So next one will be public comments on closed session. So we'll be going to closed session, and the item today will be superintendent performance, public employee performance evaluation. And if there is any comment from the public, this is the moment. Oh, okay. Before that, Bridget? But
Yeah,
no.
I just wanted to say, I did get a Zoom link from Jesus, so instead of calling in, I think we're gonna Zoom. Is that okay?
That's fine. We can do both. You can Zoom, and if it's easier for Nancy to call in, we'll do that.
Okay, awesome.
We need public comment though.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any public comment on this item? I don't see any.
No.
Okay, then thank you. With that, we move to closed session. Is 10:06.
9:06.
Yes, it's 9:06, sorry. And well, we thank you, the translators. Probably they won't be here at the end of the our closed session, and we're going. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Monica, thank you, Desmond,
So should we bring?
everything worked out.
You got rid of the Roman numerals.
Probably, yeah.
You guys have a good night.
Oh, shoot, that might have been a carryover.
Hi, can you allow me to restart my video? Hmm. Hey, I'm here, but I can't turn my camera on, but I just came back, so.
That's fine.
It says they could let me turn. I wanted to show you guys something, but I can't. I was like, oh, they don't have to do that.
Easy to give her video permission.
Try now.
That's okay, whatever.
Jesus said try again.
Okay. Okay, so I have 5 of these. I was so excited in the airport. They're little they say San Francisco and they're little crab claws.
Oh, how
There's
fun.
5 kids at the wedding tomorrow, and I'm like, guess what I'm gonna hand out? Like, there you go.
Crabby.
They're so cute.
Yes,
So
they
anyway, I just like, well, now I want one for myself.
That's fun.
So silly. Eileen, I think I missed your announcement in there. I heard it, but then I was like already hanging up. So
I think you already knew, so.
congratulations. I know.
Okay. Well, we are reconvening to open session is 9:30 p.m. and there were no decisions made during closed session. With that, we move to item 15 and the next meeting will be, well, it says that it's Thursday, but it's actually Tuesday.
Because you just changed
just
it,
changed
so
it.
it's Tuesday.
Okay, Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023 at 9 a.m. and it will be here at the district's office and it will be considered a regular board meeting. See you all there. With that, we are done at 9:31.
Jesus, are we in McKinley for that? Okay, we're in McKinley. That's good.
We're gonna ask about.
Oh yeah, you registered everyone for Acknowledge Alliance?
No, just the people that told me.
So which people told you?
So that was Bridget and Michelle.
Could you also register?
Can you register?
Register the other two
Yes.
tomorrow.
Awesome. Are we doing breakfast for the Tuesday meeting?
We can, if you want.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Makes my life easier.
What do you want?
Some keto option.
Oh, Dean probably has stuff, yeah.
Yeah, some non-bread option, that would be great. Boiled eggs, something like that.
Boiled eggs, yogurt.
Yogurt, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, some of us still eat carbs, unfortunately.
Oh, don't worry, there'll be carbs.
I think she was just meaning like not
Was
just
Danish.
one
Because
variety.
normally it's just pastry, so
Yeah.
if we have something other than pastry, I don't eat that much.
No,
Sorry.
I beg to differ. My breakfast.
No, I think she was meaning like at events, like often not like, at events, people will just do pastries.
Good night, Bridget. Good night, Nancy.
Okay, bye, thank you.
Bye.